I don't know how to speak in Kannada, but yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started with the next session. He's yet to come. Okay. Over the next 3 days, we gather a pivotal chapter in India's AI journey. Cypher 2025 has evolved into the country's largest AI summit, a unique platform unmatched in its rapid scale and reach. This year's theme, Make AI in India, signifies more than a slogan. It embodies the spirit of unity across India's entire AI ecosystem. Researchers, practitioners, policymakers, and entrepreneurs, all joining forces to build solutions that will shape not just India's future, but the world's. Throughout this event, you will gain cutting-edge insights, forge invaluable connections, and immerse yourself in vibrant energy of a community driving AI transformation. Are we ready for this transformation that we're here for, that you guys are leading? Yes? Guys, say something. It really feels like I'm talking to myself. Ladies and gentlemen, how are we doing? Are we fine? Can we be a little louder? This is really the bare minimum that, guys, we have to do better than bare minimum. You're triggering me, reminding me of my ex. No, I'm joking. All right. A loud noise together, yes? Okay, on the count of 3, 2, 1. Are we ready for the transformation? Oh, wonderful. That is what we expect out of our tech people. You people are the generation जिनके कंधों पर हमारे देश का ही नहीं पूरे के पूरे वर्ल्ड का एक नया फ्यूचर बैठा हुआ है. The future of AI sits on your shoulders. So I hope that you're not tired yet. I hope that you can gather all the energy that you have and all the enthusiasm that you have for making India the capital of AI. Can we call it that? Yes? We can, it's right? I'm not wrong. Am I? Or am I? Say something. Sir, I'm looking at this guy is not speaking. Pardon me. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Do we have the speaker? All right, okay. So we're starting with, our next speaker. In an arena where precision is everything, a young and determined ISRO team secured the organization's first ever AI patent. Yes. Pioneering algorithms for spacecraft not only safeguards our national assets in space, but also inspires thousands here on Earth through AI-driven education and research. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands up for our next speaker, Nitish Kumar. Nitish Kumar is a leading scientist at ISRO and has pioneered AI applications in space technology with a focus of intelligibility and agility. Recipient of prestigious awards such as ISRO's Innovative Young Scientists Award, he has led numerous AI projects in collaboration with NASA and Caltech. Please welcome on stage, one and only, Nitish Kumar.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to finally be here. Almost risked my life on the way in the traffic today. But I'm guessing it is worth it. I wanted to, I'm very excited about say it. Uh, and the reason is I'll be talking about innovating in AI for space technology. So let me start with a brief introduction. I work for Indian Space Research Organization, and we are the part of, we go to places where no one has gone. We think of things which no one has thought. So obviously, this is going to be very interesting from that point of view. This lecture contains a lot of very interesting words. One is innovation, which is one of my favorite topics because it's one of the most difficult topics. You can't get your hand on innovation. Very difficult to talk about it. And obviously AI. Everybody seems to know about it, but I really doubt it that we have understood AI. And space technology obviously is very fascinating. It's the epithet of technology, is the highest form of technology that any civilization builds. And that's why I think this is going to be pretty exciting. And I'll be talking on some of the topics which are very, difficult to talk about. Because why not? That's what we do at ISRO. So I'll be talking about how to innovate, and I'll be talking about how we can innovate. We'll try to dig in deeper into what is innovation. Is there a process to it? Because nowadays on YouTube, there is a process for everything, right? And if there is not a process, then what is not innovation, at least? If we can, try to figure that out. And obviously, we'll see how we have applied this in ISRO. So let me just go to what we do at ISRO in AI. So at the first instance, it seems AI and space technology will be like a love at first sight kind of thing. Because, in space, we need a lot of automation. Space is the sector which is automation hungry, both on ground and on board. But it is not the case. If you look at the space technology landscape today, people have been hesitant to take AI on board. There are obviously a lot of attempts being made, but there are good reasons for that, and we'll discuss that. But how do we cross that? There are a lot of areas in which you can apply space technology, launch operations, which includes what you see on TV when the launch is going on DD1 or national TV, right? So all those operations, there are a lot of checks, there is a countdown, right? And we can automate a lot of it by putting AI into loop, right? Right now, we have humans in the loop. Then there is spacecraft health monitoring. This is once the spacecraft is in space. So we can monitor all the telemetry that comes in, and it's a huge amount of data that comes in, and there are people currently round the clock that sit down and monitor it. I will discuss how we have solved this problem to some extent. Then obviously we go to other planets, we go to other celestial bodies, and that's why in our portfolio AI is very important because the dexterity of a mission or the quality of science that you can do, if you have AI on board and if you don't have AI, is huge. So, and obviously the Gaganyaan mission. So when you put a human into space, he needs a lot of technology. And if, AI as an intelligent technology is, obviously, a lot of, it is all like, space technology is pregnant with AI, kind of, a lot of possibilities are there. But let's break down intelligence. And it's very hard to put AI on board. And for that, we have to understand why it is so. One of the reasons is obviously because AI is a black box. Most of the processes that we have till now are data in, data out, and that does not suit well with us. But I'm going to probe this further. We all are going to probe this further, and let us see what are the different parts of intelligence, right? So this is one of the propositions that perception, when you perceive anything, it might be like sensor data or you touch something hot or something like that. And then there is cognition, which is basically that data is transformed into something else. In case of deep learning, it is generally into a latent space. And then action. If it is an image classifier, you classify it. If it is a language model, you output text. So something. And if you are a human, you touch something, and you process that, okay, this is not touchable. And you remove your hand. So that is the action. Seems like fairly good idea about cognition, right? Yeah. But at ISRO, we think like this. Can we perceive cognition? Right. So we can not only perceive physical things, we can also perceive abstract things. If I say a triangle, you all will think about a triangle, and there is no triangle. There are no triangles in the world. There is no 2D triangle ever, right? But we can think about it, we can perceive it. So we perceive things which do not exist, abstract things. Now, can we perceive cognition? And what is the cognition on top of cognition? So if you come to ISRO meetings, you get questions like this, right? So they wanted to know how do we perceive cognition, because we want to be sure that cognition is happening. And it's very tricky. If perception can, if in perception we can percept cognition, let's say, then perception itself becomes a standpoint thing. It becomes not only a part of cognition, it also becomes cognition itself. So we'll go into that. It is just the third slide. I don't want to scare everyone. But this is very interesting. We can perceive our own cognition. How many of you have done meditation? Like not today, but ever? A lot of guys, right? Right. What is the process of meditation? You observe your own thoughts. If you have the right instruction to do that. How do you perceive your own thoughts? What is perceiving the thoughts? What type of cognition is that? Metacognition, we can say it, but we don't understand what it is, right? So let's get more scientific about it. In AI, perception can be about like we discussed, computer vision is a very easy example. And in cognition, we can superimpose this theory on whatever we have right now. Right, but it gets into a lot of problems because we don't understand cognition a lot. We don't understand our own thinking. There was a lecture, I think, scheduled today. It was talking about if you don't understand humans, you cannot develop AI. I think from GenPact or something. Seems very interesting. And that is a bottleneck. One of the bottlenecks is because we don't understand our own thinking, very difficult to understand how AI thinks. Right. So it is a black box. You have some input, output. And if you start observing your own thoughts, then it becomes very funny because the observer becomes the observed. And that is not taught in any course, right? So how do we handle such things? So let's not talk about this further. Let's talk about now innovation. So why am I talking about thought and innovation in AI conference? Because for the first time in history, we have a technology that can actually perform cognition. And if cognition is the way to innovation, if thoughts are the way, if you can think new thoughts to make new things, and if I know how to make AI think new thoughts, then I can make AI perform innovation. Right? So I want to understand what is innovation. So I read a lot of books for this lecture, by the way. And I will say that this one fits kind of made the cut. All models are wrong, but some are useful. Which means when you innovate anything, right, any thought, any model, whether it be a language model, whether it be a physics model, whether it be a gravitational model, or thermodynamics model, all the models are not correct. That we know. There is always if and but and ideal conditions and so on. But most of them are useful. Let me tell you something very, very interesting. And I'm sure in 5 years you will hear this more. The more perfect or the more real a thing is, the more useless it is. So this we figured out recently when we were working in ISRO over a new kind of work which we call as relative information theory. We are basically trying to figure out how much information is there in a text or an image. And we figured out that as we go down to facts which are completely real, those facts cannot be derived from other facts, which are basically the fundamental of your assumption, the entropy is infinite there almost. So they are the most useless facts. For example, there is the sun, right? Now, this is a fact. You cannot derive it from other facts. This is completely useless to most of us, useless to society, useless at social level. But the sun rises in the east. This is a wrong statement. There is no east, right? There are a lot of context to it, like what is east, where you are, and all that, right? But it is a very useful statement. So very counterintuitive, but we figured out the more real and absolute a thing is, the more useless it is. The more useful a thing is, the more far from reality it is. Because we don't live in the real world, we live in a social world, which is a human-fabricated world. Our communications are human-fabricated, our thought processes are human-fabricated, and we are just passing on to each other. And if you want to do innovation, you have to break that barrier. I love the logo of Cypher. It has like a kind of barbed wire thing, which was there in the first slide. To me, it represents the human thought process. We can talk all day and not come out with a new thought, right? We'll be going in circles. Another interesting example is, and we did this experiment actually at ISRO. We were thinking, if in a dictionary, all the words are expressed as other words, right? Let's take an English to English dictionary. All the words are expressed as other words. What are the most canonical words? If all the words can be expressed in different words, then it's like a circle. What are the most important words that we need? So for Oxford, by the way, the answer is 582. That's what we came out with based on some assumptions, obviously. But it's very funny. There is no single source of thought. We'll dig deeper into this, but this is very important. When you innovate, you have to know if you do really a great innovation which is perfect, it will be useless. And innovations are useless. It is just a matter of time. It may get picked on later. So that is number one. Number two is, now the first step of innovation is basically at more of an individual level or a group of individuals, right? These are generally tech people. They are generally they are not very social people, or like that is a stereotype at least. But the second level is the most important level. And that is what I think will interest most of the people here, is that when you take innovation and you disrupt economy, right? And then you have these words like angel investors, am I right? And VC, I'm not into the world, so I don't know the terms. But these are the people who take your innovation or your model or your code or idea, whatever, and they transform it into economic value. They provided economic value, and this causes economic transformation and disruption. These are very important people for success of the innovation. Most important people. And these are also the people who benefit the most from the economically from the innovation. Very important people. Now, these two people, the top two layers, are also the people who are called early adopters and innovators and early adopters. They benefit most from the technology. Then third one and last one is all the people, basically the who are late adopters or laggards, you can say. So these people have to adopt technology. It is like a social force on them, that if you don't adopt technology, then you will lose out. And that is not really the point where we should adopt technology, right? So, very important quote from one of my favorite philosophers, Russell. Economics is how people make choice. Sociology or social forces are about how they don't have any choice. And that exactly happens when the technology gets old. Very important that we pick on latest technology very fast. Otherwise, we'll not be really benefiting from it. I think that is pretty clear. Let's ask a few more interesting questions. So now that we have discussed this, where does innovation occur? So it occurs in somebody's mind, right? Or like in a group's mind, or let's say collectively on internet, if it is possible, I don't know. But it is an abstract thing, it is a mental thing. And how much time does it take to happen from start to end? Like once innovation has started happening, or you get a new thought, right? Is it like suddenly that happens to a person? So most of the time it is like very fast. It's like instantaneous, but the process of the innovation to actually have effect on economy and society, that takes a lot of time. So Einstein understood relativity maybe in a fraction of a second. Took him 4 years to explain it to someone else. So that is the hard part of innovation, right? Where when you know that you have something and then you have to explain it to others because others are not there. And you also have to connect it to the past knowledge. So if AI comes out with something, obviously the most of the work is not going to be AI coming out with the idea. It will be more about how it explains to us. That will be more of the challenge, right? And then, is there a gradual progressive path that innovation lights up? So it is a convoluted statement, but basically this means is, if you look at all the innovations, like from fire to wheel to electricity, nuclear, IT revolution, and so on, are we going towards something? Is there something that we're going towards? Are we today more aware of reality than we were earlier? There can be a lot of debates about it, but certainly we have more control over reality, in some areas at least, than we had earlier. We know more about the weather, we know more about agriculture, our own body we know a little bit more than we knew like thousands of years ago. So we are kind of going to reality, right? And as I told you, as you go towards reality, which means the real world, the world that you actually interact with, your spacecraft, while going to moon, interacts with reality on the way. And we only have mental models. We only have mathematical models of that reality. And that is not exact. So in space, this is very distinct. There are a lot of effects that we have to, we may still not be aware about, right? And they will come up in some of the future research. But then we are going closer towards reality. And as I told you, as you go towards reality, you have to do a lot of work. Otherwise, it is quite useless, right? So we'll dig deeper into this. So let me now just slow the presentation a little bit, make it slower, and just talk about innovation. So somebody has told necessity is the mother of invention. And then, there's a very funny question, who is the father of invention, right? And it's an absurd concept, like I applied biological, concepts to metaphor, right? But is necessity the only requirement for innovation? How many of you really need a big innovation and you're not able to come out with it? So there are other factors along with necessity very important for innovation. How do we know those factors? How can we understand those factors? So again, a lot of research went into this, and what I propose here is not like accepted standard, but still I'll do that. I'll go ahead and say, according to me, leisure, or mostly like active leisure, and obviously it has to be a bad father because he's not present. Leisure is a bad guy. Leisure has negative connotation in our society somehow, but leisure is very important for innovation. And when I talk about leisure, I don't mean the self-indulging leisure. It's more about self-awareness leisure, which I call as active leisure. If you are really relaxed and into what you're doing, maximum chances of innovation, right? But how do we do this to AI? Is AI always in leisure? Or is it always in stress? We don't know, right? So these questions don't make sense in 2025, right? So let's go further. Let's think about if innovation is due to some new thoughts, how can I stimulate new thoughts? How can I go in search of new thoughts? You can read new books, but they may not have new thoughts. There may be some thoughts which is new for you, but may not be for others. So how do we go to that thought which is collectively not there in the human consciousness? How do we go there? How do we go out of the balloon that we all are in, right? So let's break it down. If we can understand what is the process of thought, how thoughts are generated, and if we can understand perception of thought, how thoughts are perceived, how do we know that we have thoughts, right? Probably I can apply this and ask AI to produce some new thoughts. Very difficult to do this, right? In fact, most of you must be thinking, like this sounds almost like philosophical. right? And philosophy is basically the science of what is not established yet. So let's follow this serpent, right? It represents one of the most classical dilemmas of philosophy. You can't have any assumptions. None of the assumptions of philosophy hold ground anywhere. This is exactly what happens with our thoughts. So Descartes said, I think, therefore I am, which means he has perception of thoughts, his thoughts, and the perception of thoughts is the proof that he exists. His self exists, means I exist, is because I can think. And I can understand, I can perceive my thoughts. I know I am thinking, and that's why, therefore, there I am, I exist, right? So, very good question, very important line. But today it is not. I don't think it holds all the questions today. But very good observation. Now here is the thing. If you observe your thoughts, what happens to those thoughts? So if those who have done meditation and who have read a bit of philosophy will understand. If you actually see your thoughts, they go away, they change. This is pretty much like observing an electron. If you observe an electron, the position of the electron changes. So, and then if you are observing a changed state, then you are not actually observing what you wanted to observe, right? Because its position has changed. So if you observe thought, you can't really observe it because it has changed. So if thoughts are what you are, if your thoughts have changed, you will always find a changed you, right? Because you are the thoughts. So if you observe your thoughts, you change yourself. So how can you observe yourself, right? Classic problem of self-reference. And then a very important question is, if the action of observation is on thoughts, who is observing it? Because you are the thoughts. You can't observe the thoughts without external, pedal or reference. But we all know, although our thoughts are changing, there is something constant, right? There is something more constant than thoughts, and that is the self. That may not be the social self. I am totally different person, what I was like 5 years ago. I was much better 5 years ago, let me tell you. Now today, I'm a very different person, but there is some continuity. There is something same, right? What is that? So there is a reference behind all this cognition, all this things that are happening. Now, similar to AI, if you allow AI to change its own code, the environment in which AI is working, if I allow LLM to change its own, weights, for example, then is it the same LLM? If it is not the same LLM, its goals will change, right? You can't achieve anything if you allow AI to do a self-reference. So that's why it is banned. And in space coding qualifications, we have like ban on self-reference loops. We never go there, right? So very interesting, very important for AI. Now, as I said, we can perceive our thoughts and change of thoughts. That means perception is more primordial than thoughts. Perception is more primordial than thoughts. And I told you earlier also that perception seems to be more fundamental than cognition, right? This is similar to like science is more primordial than technology. Science was there even when technology was not there, right? Science has always been same. And technology fails, science does not fail. So your thoughts can be wrong, but maybe you are not wrong. Whatever is that observer is not wrong, right? So there is something deeper than thoughts, even with humans and even with, hopefully with AI. So seems like perception without aberration of thoughts is the higher form of intelligence. If you want to become more intelligent, perhaps the best way to do this is avoid your thoughts. Now this may seem like some spiritual lecture, but this is actually real. Even we have derived it logically, right? That if you really want to get more intelligent, then you have to go to something deeper. And that is what I am calling as perception, right? Let's go a bit more deeper into this. Now here we break down what I think at least is innovation and how we have applied this at ISRO in few of the projects. I will discuss that after this slide. Human consciousness or thoughts is the consciousness of want. Now, this is a well-established premise that many people have accepted. You can think because you want something. If you don't want something, then thoughts are not relevant. The thoughts are to satisfy want. Similar to technologies for satisfaction of some desire, some objective, right? But science is not for that. We at ISRO go to the moon. People ask, why do you go to the moon? We are like, we obviously tell that there are a lot of reasons, minerals and all. But the fact is that we just do it for the, it's a huge privilege to do that, right? For the whole country, do it for the whole country. You do it for the sake of doing it. People who study science, biggest breakthroughs in science, are not with the objective. The objective is the pollutant. It's a limitation of any innovation. And what is the first thing that people do when they list out any, we call it technology demonstration or development projects? What is the objective of this project, right? So that's very counter productive, actually. You have to go into it without minimizing the limitations of wants, applications, goals. This will not lead to innovation. Go into it for the sake of it. And that's why I told, that is what people do in active leisure. If you leave a child in a park or in an orchard or something, he will take a stick and dig the ground. For the sake of digging the ground, there is no, like, he's not finding oil or something, right? So it is just for the sake of doing that. And that is active leisure. If you are doing your work, if you are doing any project with that intention, innovation will happen. And then you find someone who is angel investor or something, like the guy who can make the economic disruption, and there is your change. And this is how, recently I was talking to someone who trained Llama models for Meta, and they were telling that, in ChatGPT also, this is how it happened. Somebody in ChatGPT team had some hunch. They went after it. They trained the model over the weekend, and it was producing the best results. This was not even registered project. Like, this is not one of the things they were observing. Most of the innovation stories are like that, right? So, observation or perception without thoughts. We have to keep perception on, just observe without any bias, without any aberration of thought, without any objective, right? This is very important. And then your thoughts can move beyond the boundaries. That is the only way to go to newer thoughts. That is the only way to get out of the balloon, out of the box, or whatever you want to call it, is when you are truly honest and you are not with the previous thoughts. In Vedanta or Upanishads, if you read them, there is a concept called Smriti. Smriti is a part of intelligence. Smriti basically means memory. Memory is the worst form of intelligence. All you know is crap, basically, according to Vedas, not me. So basically, that is not the way to develop yourself when it comes to innovation. And that is very important in AI. So if you do this, you can go to new thoughts, out of the balloon, out of the surface, into something new. That is the only way to do it, that I could at least find. And this is the birth of, this can lead to birth of new technologies. Now, seems like AI seems to be the perfect person to do this. It has no thoughts, no wants, right? But why cannot AI innovate? But still AI cannot innovate, right? Seems to fit the list, but cannot innovate. Because whenever we give AI any task, the objective is from our side. The data is from our side. So we are actually stopping AI. In that sense, if you see, we are the limit of AI. Very, very true. Let me go further. Let's put this into practice. Okay, I just don't want to make false claims. I will talk about 3 innovations in 3 different segments of AI we have done at ISRO, and how whatever we have done, we thought about whatever we discussed about innovation, is there in that. Yeah, so this is one of the first things. We did this in 2017-18. We had to find out defects in solar cells. Solar cells produce energy for the satellite. We have thousands of cells in every satellite, and their defects very hard to see. Solar cells absorb light. They are black. How do you see something that absorbs light? Okay, so very difficult to see. Need AI to identify these cracks. And here is the issue. We need AI with 100% accuracy. ISRO people don't accept anything that is below 100%, right? So, and this is in 2017-18. Attention mechanism was still not very popular. So we are on our own, right? There's no new thoughts there. We have to come out with something that we can apply AI on. And we did that with a team of 3 people, very young people. So let me go into this more detail. Now, if we use traditional methods, they were, in fact, even today, they are not very explainable, right? Like, you can talk about explainability, but not really something you'd like to say to government people. Like, they will not listen to it, right? And either we can drop it or we can have a new approach. So this was a specification of the new approach: more human understandable, reduced abstention rate, better training measure. Okay, this is what we needed. But when we did the innovation, we did not think about this. If we thought about this, we could have never done it. So I'll explain to you. So this is architecture we came out with. Okay, right now this is what is working. I have 10 minutes, right? So, okay. So this is what the architecture we came out with, and this is producing like 100% accuracy right now. And the main thing is this exam module, what you see here. This is what we have patented also recently. I'll explain how this works. Now, how many of you have seen SHAP images? Shapely values, game theory. Yeah, a lot of people here, right? This is a very simple SHAP matrix of the solar cells. So here is where the innovation actually is. Okay. If you look at the two images, one having the cracks and one not having the cracks, right? There is a difference between the two images. And I was sitting at like around 1:30 a.m. in the night, and I was seeing some bats flying near my balcony. And like, this is how I got the idea. I'm just telling you the story. It's not a great story, by the way. It's a very simple story. And I was just looking at bats, and I was thinking, what are they seeing in the darkness? How they can see in the darkness? And then I thought, what are the things they cannot see in the darkness? Right? And then I knew I had something. Because most of the people, they were working on attention mechanisms. They were trying to locate where the things are, object detection. We thought we'll see where there is no objects. Like, let's look at the opposite side of the story. So if you look at this top matrix or image, you will see this is like very chaotic. The SHAP values are completely distributed because there is no cracks here. And this is a part of the solar cell. Whereas in this image, there are clearly 2-3 cracks. And this is not so, like, chaotic, basically. It is not so random. So we came out with a method. And obviously, at that time, information theory talks about measure of randomness in one dimension. So we had to develop the whole mathematics. How do we extend that to an image in 2 dimensions? We call it something as Dell entropy. And then we actually came out with a way to, okay, I know this condition. If this is true, then definitely there are no cracks. And when we did the maths, it was 100% correct. And this was mathematically done. But you still need the deep learning model, right, to get the SHAP matrix. So this is what we just completely flipped the story. We didn't talk about attention. We talked about distraction, in fact, like how distracted is the model, right? And that's what led to some of the better results. If you see the results, right, even though the model is producing very bad predictions here, the entropy is much higher on the top side, much lower here. And that's why this is always correct. Like, it never has gone wrong. We have tested more than 14,000 cells so far, and it has always been correct in this case. So this was at the same time Google came out with attention is all you need paper. We were working on distraction is also something you need, right? Another beautiful thing about this is that when you train a model using this algorithm, you are able to see the Dell entropy's values very clearly as the model gets trained. There was a huge problem at that time of overlearning, underlearning, right? All those things were there. So we came out with applying the same concept. Now, if you train a model, this, like, you can see just the 2 classes is separate. And if it is overlearning, it will not separate. Just one simple idea of what if we cannot see something? How do we know the state that we cannot see something? And that was while looking at bats at 1:30 a.m. in the night, right? So, yeah, basically, so this actually we have patented, we have applied to a lot of places. So let me go to the next one. Yeah, this can be applied in a lot of areas. We're applying in defense projects. I will not go there, but yeah. Let's look at something else where this was extended. This was in health monitoring. We have a lot of data coming in from the satellites and all the spacecrafts and round-the-clock analysis and decision-making. So we have like 5-6 centers which have people 24/7 just trying to understand what is happening to the spacecrafts, because every spacecraft is like 500 crores roughly, right? So it's very important to us that they are healthy. Now, we came out with an algorithm that was called MEND. MEND is again based on the similar concept of distraction. How true your forecasts are, right? And if they are not true, if they're entropic, then we say that, okay, something is going to happen. Then we tested on the data, and this is actually in open source. Like this already paper is published in Conference on Data Sciences. And we were able to get 20, 30, which corresponds to 10, 15 minutes of advance notice if we know that something is going to happen to the satellite. This is a huge plus for us, right? Because satellites are like national assets, and they're very expensive. So this was very useful for us. Yeah. So a lot of applications can be there. You need some VC people to take this at cost of economic disruption. But yeah. And then again, we went into generative AI. So this is something we made in 2023. It was a spotlight technology at our center. And this was the first virtual employee. In 23, we made it. So one of the things I really suggest that we should do is go at the latest technology very fast. Because then people don't ask, have you tried this? Because if you go today, they will try, have you tried Agentic AI? Have you tried this, that? So we thought we'll do something which there's nothing to talk about. Like people cannot ask even, what have you tried or something. So that is one of the things we do at our team is we just work on the latest tech so that there are no counter questions, right? Yeah, so based on the success of GYAN, actually, Bihar Government Education Secretary asked me to develop something for the students. And we actually reached out to 22,000 schools in Bihar where there was a problem of language, and self-paced learning. We wanted to make education accessible to everyone. So this is actually online. It is called GYAN. And it allows you to ask questions only on NCERT syllabus, child-friendly language, and it is government-weighted and private and all those things. So this is something we developed for the students. Yeah, this is again something that we are developing for Gaganyaan. This is called Medical AI Doctor in Space. It is basically an AI assistant which already knows where the spacecraft is, what is the position of the spacecraft, what is happening with the spacecraft's dynamics, and then looks at the health parameters of the astronaut. Now, I have just 3.5 minutes, so one question. There is a problem with LLMs when you apply it as a doctor. Can you think of it? Yeah, so now everyone knows, right? What is the problem? The problem is, you don't want a doctor to whom you tell, I have cold, and he just gives you like 5 medicines, right? You want a doctor who keeps quiet for some time till you are telling all the symptoms, right? And then it gives final list of some medicine. So problem with LLMs is, as soon as you say something, it'll give out a solution. It can't shut up, basically. So again, we had to go to this, how do we make the LLM shut up? Because you can't apply something. So this is still in development, but the idea was, how do we shut up LLM? Then we came out with something like this. So this is called anticipative assessment. This assessment is of the LLM. And this is anticipative. So before a question goes to LLM, we do this anticipative assessment of how will my LLM or my agent respond to this question. And this is, right now it is data-driven. We are working towards how to make this more deterministic. But the idea here is very simple, that if the doctor is not confident that it can answer with the amount of information so far, then it will just keep waiting for further information. And then it reaches a threshold, which we found out in this case was 0.77 in our use case, and then it will start. So it will not answer all these questions which are having, below the threshold. You have to talk to it more until it reaches the threshold. This was very important for us because there is a lot of compute and energy wasted every time a question goes to the LLM. So this was another something we had to invent, just for the sake of it. Finally, I just want to come to this that, see, I have been working in AI for 11 years now. I was working in AI when nobody was working on it. Because I just love the subject. I love the idea of intelligence. I don't know why, maybe because I'm not intelligent or something. But the point is, I can tell you this. It's very closely, the development of AI is very closely tied to our understanding of ourselves, right? Because the fundamentals of thought have not been discovered, it's very difficult to actually make much better progress for AI, which are deterministic. And if AI is not deterministic, we cannot apply to space technologies. Yeah, so kind of like similar story what happened in Industrial Revolution. You went from muscle power to steam power to electric power, nuclear power. This is a totally different game. This is a mental game. This is a mental subject. AI is not an engineering subject, I feel at least. It is like an abstract subject, right? Should be studied like that. Then you go from basic math to statistics, then data science, deep learning, LLM. Finally, you have to go to cognition. You have to think at thought level, right? You cannot now think at just data level. And we came out with some of the formulas, particularly inspired by this guy, Jose Hernando Orayo. In fact, he visited us and gave us a lecture there. And based on his suggestions, we actually did this almost 1.5 years back. We are already working on what are the new ways of representing technology, information, and like I told, relative information theory. We are trying to understand what are the hierarchies in thought. A lot of interesting work going on there at our end on this. Right. So coming back to this, just want to say that this is at group level or individual level. This is more at like organization level. You need some people who know the business point as well. And then obviously, we have to try to adopt technology before the tech becomes the social force, right? Because today everybody needs a mobile number, right? So, okay, that's all from my side. I hope that we'll get a chance to work with us. And let's not only apply AI to develop India, also apply India to develop AI for all. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for listening so patient.
Thank you so much, Nitish. Thank you so much, Nitish. A very comprehensive session, and I am not a tech guy, by the way. I do not come from technology background, but I could understand whatever Nitish was telling about. It's a very useful lecture, I think, in terms of all aspects. Can we please once again give Nitish a huge round of applause, everyone? Let's dive deep into M, Next Gen's cutting edge, modular, agentic AI platform designed to transform human intent into real world actions. This session unveils the architecture behind M, showcasing its seamless integration with APIs, enterprise system, and external services to create secure, extendable workflows. For this session, we have a trailblazer driving the future of enterprise AI. He heads the AI engineering division at NextGen Cloud Technologies, leading a team of 80 brilliant engineers to deliver sovereign end-to-end AI solutions across industries with deep expertise across AI stacks from NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, IBM, to Red Hat. He has mastered the art of blending open source and enterprise AI to power through business innovation. Please welcome Mr. Abhishek Kumar Singh, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much. Very good afternoon to all of you. Over the next 35 minutes, my objective will be to dive deep into the architecture of M, NextGen's agentic AI platform that we've engineered right here in Bangalore, but built for the world. Over the next few days at the Expo, there's going to be a lot of conversation around agentic. The power of autonomous decision-making with reasoning models is now second to no one. At NextGen, we're blessed to have several interactions with a lot of customers, some here at the Expo as well, who are very learned about the actual outcomes, the SLAs that they expect from this AI technology. And never so has it happened before that academia and enterprise adoption is happening parallelly at the same rate. There was always a gap. That gap has now come down simply because of the boon that we get from artificial intelligence. All of this circles to the fact that we have a great amount of market opportunity. Our customers are aware that there is agentic options. They are looking for real-world outcomes. They're defining the SLAs, the fact that they want a response time within a few seconds, the fact that they want to trigger an API within a few seconds. They know accuracy, they know recall. Enterprise and academia is now progressing at the same rate. And hence, that gives us an opportunity to orchestrate a platform like M. When we were piecing M as a platform together, we took into consideration the fact that there are a lot of traditional applications, there are a lot of APIs, there are some that are well-versed with the world of AI, there's some that are not. How effectively can we take all of their technology, hook it into an agentic platform, and actually deliver a real-world business outcome? And that will be the theme of this entire presentation today. How effective are we at matching SLAs, at taking APIs? What architecture do we employ to get this real-world outcome? But this gives me a very unique opportunity to talk about two distinct aspects: the last decade in academia and the last decade in terms of technology in India. Right? If you look at what was happening around 2012, 2016, it was the first time that we noticed that densely connected neural networks would outperform linear projection algorithms. Right? And what this means is that if we got multiple components representing different aspects of input data connected to each other, we would be able to draw out much more nuanced information than you would get from a linear projection algorithm like a linear regression or a logistic regression. And this insight has actually been the premise for what happened for the decade ahead. How effective is our model architecture in terms of drawing out key insights, drawing as many relationships, not just semantically, but also positionally, right? And not just for language. There was a lot of work that happened for image, a lot of work that happened for matrix data, a lot of work that happened for disparate data sources. But somewhere around 2017, 2018, like Mr. Nitish just mentioned, we had the gift of Transformer, right? And what Transformer did uniquely was it actually took about 50 decades of research in NLP and gave it one magical element of context. It's slightly distorted, but what I have mentioned here is that a lot of work happened in natural language processing. There was bag of words, continuous bag of words. We had n-gram models. We had word to vector, sequence to sequence. None of it really popped off. The motivation the entire time was to draw as much context as possible into an architecture. And what Transformers did is it gave not just semantic information, but also positional information. Where is a word located in a sentence? Put it into the architecture and allowed us to really draw key insights out of that. And from that point on, we had the great ChatGPT moment, and we had massive, massive open source contributions in terms of models, in terms of model architecture, in terms of training methodologies, in terms of GPU compute as well. A lot of open source contribution that really birthed from all this work that happened on language modeling. And then we have the path ahead, right? A lot of talk about artificial general intelligence. Our pathway to AGI is not one magical model that will do everything. In fact, the architecture itself is limiting. There is a theoretical limit to how far you can push a transformer. But the pathway to AGI is much more disaggregated than that. There are going to be advancements in training methodologies. There's going to be advancements in model architectures. There's going to be advancements in inferencing methodologies. There's also going to be a lot of advancements in compute and networking. And all of this comes in and enables either startups to do a better job or enhances their already ready products as we head towards AGI. And if you want to really dive into it, the key idea behind AGI is how many subject matter experts can we have working in tandem to give you the virtual experience that you have one model that can do it all. And all of this is really a backbone for M. All of these are key considerations for M. I'm glad I get to share this with you. Right. So here I have the progression in the last decade, but in an Indian context, a slightly unique take. In the Indian context, we had Jandhan, Aadhaar, and mobile about 2014. A huge gift from the government, from all the ministries involved, from all the people involved, because this digitized and enabled a whole lot of individuals in terms of technology. Each individual with an access to a smartphone, around 700 million back in 2018, became a touch point for a solution in terms of technology adoption. A whole lot of work happened in healthcare, in agriculture, rural development, education, in terms of enabling these areas, and a whole lot of technology investment was made as well. These are traditional applications, microservices. The bedrock of Indian IT was formed somewhere around the 2018 mark. Around the same time, we had Transformer come into the mix. Early last year, we had a big gift from the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology with the India AI mission. Several pillars focusing on advancing AI across several domains in terms of training foundation models, in terms of making compute available to startups and ISVs and academia, our colleges and institutions. NextGen played a key role in the India AI mission and emerged as the L1 bidder for all the categories of GPU compute that we participated in. But it's much more than that. The idea behind being an L1 bidder is that we get to play a critical role in the transformation journeys of several MSMEs, right? We help several institutions and accelerate their AI journey. And this carves a very unique path towards AGI, slightly different from what I just mentioned a few minutes ago. Our unique path towards AGI is language motivated. It's cost sensitive, so we are optimized from the get-go. And we have massive infrastructure in terms of traditional microservices in the areas of healthcare, in the areas of rural development, in the areas of education. How does all of this converge? Mr. Nitish just mentioned towards the end of his slide that we should have technology that we do in India, but we build for the world. And that is exactly the opportunity that we have with M as well. So far, we've been adopting global trends and inculcating that as technology within our workflows, whether it's traditional application development, coding architectures, the IT stack altogether. But with AI, we've gotten the opportunity to solve our own problems, and it so happens that the world is headed in a very similar direction. The government, MSMEs, startups, everyone is inclined to go in the same direction. And how we do that is we provide the platform, run it on NextGen's infrastructure, hook in the best open source models, work with the best startups and ISVs in this space, about 6,200 of them in India as of 2019. Work with enterprises, transform their entire traditional application stack, and also work with the government, and we cohesively take things forward. And that allowed us to come up with the architecture that you see here. Again, we've only zoomed in on the critical components, but if I could redirect your attention to just three things on this slide, it would be the central orchestrator. How effectively are we handling a user's query and identifying what the user's intentions are? It would be the tool registry. How many tools do we have? We spoke about rural, we spoke about healthcare, we spoke about education. Each of these are disparate tools, sets of microservices, probably hundreds of APIs. These disparate tools, how can we have a central registry of them, right? And finally, it would be the underlying models. How effectively can we use compute in India, deployed in a sovereign manner, optimize their inferencing, get really good performance on inferencing, and put this all together. So if I could, again, redirect your attention, it would be three primary things. It would be the orchestration, it would be the tool registry, and it would be a very, very performant inferencing platform that is orchestrating multiple really, really large language models and allowing them to work in tandem and not destroying the user's experience so that the user is able to get an outcome despite going through this workflow really quickly. So what are the key considerations for M's intelligent routing? How do we take a call on what's the right way to route requests? there's no one good way to do it, but there's a whole lot of work that happened in open source that guides this journey. So what I have here is, a few things that we considered. We had some great contributions from Anthropic, from Red Hat. When you look at these routing agents that I'm going to present to you, to all the engineers, to all the software developers in the audience, to all those that are passionate about technology, this circles back to getting a motivation from traditional algorithmic design. Your router must either fall back to a greedy approach, to a divide and conquer approach. It must either employ dynamic programming so that you have subsets of the problem being solved by different experts, and then you're able to push them together. Or it could be a backtracking approach, wherein you go ahead, you get an outcome, but you might have to take a step back, correct that outcome, and then make progress again. So when we look at the space of routing, try to circle back to one of these algorithmic approaches, and you will very soon join the dots and understand that all the work that comes from some of the best, biggest organizations in the world is actually circling back to traditional algorithmic design. Here from Anthropic, we see a lead agent and sub-agents, right? A direct parallel to divide and conquer. If you have a brilliant, large reasoning model that can understand a query, and it is effectively fine-tuned to send a part of the request to a sub-agent, and a different part of that request to another sub-agent, and then you could write a piece or another model that is fine-tuned to amalgamate the response. That's exactly what Anthropic suggested just around the same time last year in terms of agentic capabilities. Red Hat took a very different approach to semantic routing, right? The idea for Red Hat was just have a separate model and redirect different components to a different model. You could get a part of the solution from math. You could get a part of the solution from creative. You don't really need to merge and have another expert model merging it. You could have different outcomes coming directly from different models. We have the route LLM framework, wherein it's a slightly optimized strategy. I might want to have a smaller reasoning model for a part of the task, so I can save on cost, I can save on inference time, and I will reserve my large language model, in terms of parameters, in terms of model length. I will reserve it for extremely complicated tasks or tasks that involve a huge sequence length coming into the model, right? So disaggregation in terms of optimization is what Route LLM as a paper suggested. We have the RCR router, wherein it decided that the router should be aware of different roles that a model can play. So it's a slightly role-based approach. You might have interacted with systems wherein you've prompted the system to behave like an analyst. You've prompted the system to behave like a customer IT support agent, right? RCR stems off the same thought process, but instead of prompting a model, you actually change the weights of the model for it to behave like that. And therefore, you can have a smaller prompt, you can save on that prompt sequence, and you can offload a lot of that to an expert model. We have hybrid routing as well, and this again circles back to amalgamation. The key idea over here is I could have multiple problems being solved by multiple models. All models are solving a subset of the problem, and there is an intersection between the problems that they solve. And finally, I have a very capable amalgamation model that is able to take the relevant chunks, relevant outputs from every model, put it together, and then give a user a response. So we spoke about routers. We spoke about the algorithmic background over there. But when it comes to the tool registry, it's something completely different. There's not a lot of algorithmic motivation behind a tool registry. But there's a lot of work that's happened. A lot of you might have heard about Model Context Protocol, a brilliant open source initiative, again from Anthropic, with the key idea being the world comprises APIs, right? RESTful protocols allowed us to write APIs in different languages, and different front ends could connect with the same APIs. It did not matter how one wrote code. If it followed RESTful protocol, any programming language could integrate with any programming language. And that's literally the definition of a protocol, a mechanism for two different technologies to be able to communicate with each other. The motivation here was to find a mechanism to bring a protocol into AI. Everyone would build their agents in their own manner. Every agent would behave a certain way. But we'd never be able to build a centralized mechanism if we did not standardize the way we did tooling. And that's exactly what MCP did. It gave a protocol for how you must build your tool. So let's say you have an API that performs a movie booking. You might have APIs to fetch the available seats. You might have APIs to book the ticket. You might have APIs for added benefits like popcorn and whatnot. Now, the way I'd implement it, I'd probably get 3 APIs into the system, and I would hook it up a certain way. But one of you might have integrated in a fully different way, wherein you might have fetched the seats and immediately fetched the information about added benefits as well. 2 different mechanisms of working would never allow us to make accelerated progress in terms of tooling. By prescribing a mechanism to build tools, by building a protocol, and by building a foundry of very, very important MCP services in terms of file management, in terms of databases, they allowed us one mechanism that we could solve for, and we could push our customers to solve as well, and communicate using this protocol. I've highlighted custom MCP server over there, because this protocol also prescribes rules for you to take your own APIs and convert them into an MCP-compatible server. There's a lot of other disparate tooling options as well that are not as nuanced in terms of protocol, but allow us to do some great tasks, right? Quite a lot of you might have interacted with LangChain tooling and LangGraph tooling. A whole lot of tools, a whole lot of boilerplate code in terms of web search, SQL, file I/O, APIs. You see how it's circling back to enabling traditional applications, the very problem that we're trying to solve in India. We have Llama Index. It's more semantic. It's more CPP, C++ based. We have Crew AI, again, a brilliant tooling option. We have N8N workflows, a whole lot of boilerplate code on N8N, wherein you have large sequence of tools working in tandem with each other, right? And then you could also have your own custom tools, right? It is important to go through thoroughly and weigh out the benefits of each when designing a platform like M. How can we have one central orchestrator that has the capability of working with each and every one flowchart that I've shown you in the last 10 odd minutes, right? And that's exactly what we had to do. Again, like I said, if we had to zoom in to 3 things from the entire discussion so far, it would be how effective is our model deployment strategy, heavyweight, the biggest wheel that you see over here. What are the models that we use? Large models and small models working in tandem. We need to have a semantically aware orchestrator agent. And this is a mixture of all the routing strategies that I showed you. You need to have an orchestrator that can understand the query, that can work with expert models, that can work with sub-agents, that could either use a weaker model for a certain part of the task and a stronger model for a certain part of the task. And then you need to put the tool registry right on top of this, like a hat. And you need all of these things to work in tandem with each other. So if we were to zoom in what we've done for M, realistically, right? Because there's a lot of theory. What have we actually done in terms of deploying models? We that are specifically put into M's architecture, to handle images and documents, right? We have different models that do that. And we also, from a router level, handle direct responses. Those queries which require the large reasoning model, they would go in directly, and we'd get a response directly. I think the key idea that I want to paint over here is that there's an orchestrator's motivation to close the task, and it comes from the router's algorithmic statefulness, right? And finally, tools. Tools are stateful. So there's a little bit of an intersection between the orchestrator's role and the tool's role. How we do this is with Redis. Redis is one of the best, most resilient RAM-based databases in the world. It's open source. And one of the key angles in terms of tools, because I've painted the picture in terms of statefulness, is if I have 2 tools, how effectively can I transfer the state from one tool and push it towards another tool? that, great, you've booked your movie ticket, now do you need a cab? Should I book a cab for you? And that is state handoff. That is something that we've engineered with Redis. So when an enterprise integrates with us, they could have multiple microservices that get converted into tools. And via Redis, we are able to hand off state between these tools and give an even more cohesive experience. Again, circling back to the fact that there is not one model that is doing a magical, a magical element over here. There's no one model that is solving everything. It's multiple workflows orchestrated by brilliant models. I think that's the key idea. With a platform like this, we get the opportunity to venture into a very, very vast space. To all of you, I'm not sure. Actually, I'm pretty sure you would have seen M's booth. It's a large central booth. There's a whole lot of products that we're showcasing there right now. But to achieve that, this was the legwork that we had to go through. So you could have a product for hiring. You could have a product for coding. You could have a business-specific agent. You could have a product that is domain-aligned for chartered accountancy and finance. You could have a legally aligned model that's trained on legal documents. All of this is possible if you are able to orchestrate well and play around with tools really well. Zooming in specifically into what we have here, M business agents are basically conversational agents that allow you to use natural language and speech and fit into industries like customer support, IT support, sales. They allow you to drop the number of resources that you have and allow them to focus on more important tasks while it does the heavy lifting for you. Again, the motivation here is not just to have a friendly two-way conversation. The motivation here is to converge the user towards a certain action. I want to make sure that if I am using inferencing from a model and I'm having ASR and TTS and a model behind the scenes, I want to push the user towards taking a decision. That could be raising a support ticket. That could be a purchase order. It could be anything. With M business agents, the possibilities are limitless. It could be any domain. And the way we do this is with a very resilient speech engine sitting on top of M's orchestration, right? So just a small modular addition on top of M. With M chat, what we've done at NextGen is we have a fully sovereign chat deployment, right? And sovereignty is of essence to us at NextGen. A lot of the government customers that we work with, a lot of the enterprises that we work with, we do business with them primarily because they're really keen about the data being with them and fully in their control. And sovereignty is not just in terms of technology. It's in terms of data and operations. So tomorrow, if something were to go down politically between two different countries, is your IT application impacted by it? Right? And that's the essence. If a cloud service provider tomorrow, a global hyperscaler, decides not to give you services in terms of artificial intelligence, your application development might stop. Government ministries cannot afford that. And that is the premise for sovereign. Everything needs to run on my own infrastructure. The models, the applications, the databases, I need to have complete control over every aspect. And with that ethos, NextGen has been communicating on its own chatting application, wherein we have full control of the chats. We've been doing that for years now. But with the addition of AI, it became a brilliant opportunity for us to have very, very contextual AI sitting within this chatting application. And the end experience is that AI is fit into every group. You have natural language interactions with your colleagues within that group or channel. And then AI is learning from that, but it's sovereignly deployed. And you're not really worried about data going outside your network. It stays within the network. And then you can probe mChat to give you reports, summaries, priorities. It will answer questions from your files. The key idea is if you have complete control over the data, you can do a whole lot with AI. And that's what we exploit with mChat. With M for coding, there is an agent registry, an orchestration that is slightly unique for coding. Software engineering tasks are very different from general purpose LLM tasks, right? It's not just a conversational experience. You're not drafting a document. Software engineering is long pieces of code. You want to add in an API. You want to add a new database. You want to build some front end. It's long context, and therefore we need really, really heavy models to support that. Again, a good opportunity for us to use state space. That's going to be the next big thing, in my opinion. But with M for coding, that's what we do. It sits within your Visual Studio Code, and I don't think it's a co-pilot. I think it's an autopilot, because you could plan with it, Once you agree with the plan, you could ask it to take actions. It will populate these files. And more often than not, within a few attempts, you have a fully working application, if not in the first attempt itself. With M for Finance and M for Corporate Legal, we domain align. We spoke a little bit about how small models are very, very powerful if they are domain aligned. Here, we don't have small models. We still do have very, very large models, greater than 100 billion parameters. But we've domain aligned them to specific domains like finance and corporate legal. Extremely large models are never trained with the motivation to work only for a specific domain. Large organizations cannot afford that kind of budget going into simply a finance model for India. There's no reason why a global organization would ever do that. That presents a unique opportunity for us to domain align these models, and that's exactly what we did. With M for Finance, we have about 1 lakh curated documents that apply to chartered accountants. These range from CA courses, CA acts, gazettes and tribunals, magazines, and acts all the way back from 1950 up until now. With M for Corporate Legal, we have about 5 lakh documents that fall into the corporate legal domain. We stitch together a very detailed knowledge graph that captures the relationships between every single component mentioned, between every single document. So if you're looking at 90,000 and one document has about 100 important aspects, you're looking at 90,000 into 100 detailed relationships. So if the same concept is mentioned in 20 documents, when you ask M for Finance a query today, and you can at our booth, it's going to look through all of those and help you establish precedents very quickly, a very important aspect for chartered accountants. And apply that the same, if you will, for corporate legal as well. Domain alignment is very powerful because it significantly drops your search space. If you were to look manually at 20 documents and draw an insight, that's a day's worth of task if you're a brilliant, motivated professional. But with M for Finance, it's a few minutes. We're working with chartered accountants and some of the best legal law firms in the country to make sure that it is built purpose-specific, and experts are involved right from stage 1. With M for Hiring, again, an offshoot of this brilliant agentic underlying platform. What we do is we have the capability of screening candidates based on their resumes, associating different weights and biases for different components of the resume, curating a very, very personalized hiring experience for an organization, with every parameter being controlled. So if you were to take a candidate's resume, and then you want to prioritize which university they're from, whether they have research publications, whether they've got a 9+ CGPA or not, even though that's not the right motivation. But yeah, you could zoom into any one of these aspects and build a platform that works for your organization. And that's what we do for M for Hiring. This is India's own sovereign extensible platform, powered by the best open source models that delivers real world outcomes. And I think my conclusion on this tangent would be, we are in a very, very good position in terms of the motivation to do AI. Our motivation to do AI is not funny, gimmicky aspects. It's real world outcomes driven by SLAs. Each one of our customers, fortunately, is extremely driven and motivated to make sure that if I am doing AI, what's the increase in efficiency or the drop in cost? And these are brilliant motivations because they will push us, all of us, collectively as a community, towards doing things that matter. Mr. Raj, who runs NextGen, who is the CEO and MD of NextGen, spoke about this earlier today. The motivation is not to do generalized tasks or funny things. It's about achieving real outcomes so that AI can work for you. It does not matter if it's a 600 billion parameter model or a 2 billion parameter model. It doesn't matter if it's 32 GPUs working together or half a GPU working for you. It should help you achieve your objective, and that is the only motivation that we have for M as a platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abhishek Kumar Singh. Ladies and gentlemen, so much information, so much knowledge just in one room. A lot of people are still standing because there's no place, but great session, Abhishek. Thank you so much for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, moving ahead to the next session, let me tell you, Prepare for an AI-driven future by blending technical skills with essential human strengths like creativity, empathy, and problem solving. Drawing insights from LinkedIn Skills on the Rise 2025 report. This talk explores how continuous learning, adaptability, and a human centric approach will empower India's young workforce to lead in AI readiness across all career stages. I believe that if you're here to learn about AI, if you're here to, even if you're a specialist in it, there's always going to be something new about it, right? So if you've come here with the intention of learning all the aspects of artificial intelligence, this session is not to be missed. Because yes, this session is going to be talking about the career stages, which is a very mandatory subject to be talked about, to be known about. And hence, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker, Mr. Malai Lakshmanan, is here with us. Give a huge round of applause to him. Mr. Malai Lakshmanan heads engineering at LinkedIn, India's second largest R&D center, serving over 1 billion users worldwide. Malai is also committed to socio-economic empowerment through his non-profit, Siruthuli. His multifaceted expertise makes him a compelling advocate for developing AI-ready talent anchored in human insight. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Malai.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know if I've ever gotten a better introduction. Thank you. Nice to see all of you. Malai Lakshmanan from LinkedIn. You know, in a room full of technologists and technology enthusiasts, I'm sure you'll agree with me that we are actually on the cusp of some exciting, maybe even some unsettling times in human history. Artificial intelligence is not science fiction anymore, unless you are living under a rock. AI is everywhere, and it's actually starting to reshape the way we work and we live. Do we feel we are ready for this? This question is actually even more important right here in India. Why? Because until recently, every economist in the world was actually asked, what is the biggest edge India has, right? And the answer was the demographic dividend, which is the age group of like 35 and below coming into the workforce. With so much disruption happening and the onset of AI, I feel like this is a moment of reckoning for India as to how we lead our teams, our organizations, and our country through this change. While I was actually thinking about this topic, I'm a history buff, so I decided to just look up history and say, is there anything that we can learn from history? And sure enough, there is. Excuse me, folks. Green one. There's still more AI work to be done for the clicker, I guess. Let's just give it a minute. It's up? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Like I said, I went back in history and I was looking for something that we can learn from, right? And I saw this interesting piece on electricity. So electricity was actually, invented like in the mid-1800s. In the 1880s, it was a proven source of power, and generators were running. But still, the technology for decades wasn't actually adopted really well. And how long did it take? 40 years. 40 years. Until 1920s, it was not adopted, right? What were the reasons, right? It is not because people didn't believe in electricity. It is because the center of how they were operating in those days, mainly the factories, was actually reliant on one giant central steam engine, which powered the factories. So given that that is something they had to change, it took a lot of time. They had to change the layouts. They had to change the, retrain their folks. They had to do so many different things to actually make this happen. And it actually required leadership. It required culture change for them to go through this. Now, let's actually see where we are. Obviously, the breakthroughs happen. As all of you would agree with me, we are in the early adoption cycle of the AI revolution. Now, what do we think the timeline is going to be? I don't think any of us would know, but one thing we can probably all agree on is it's not going to take another 40 years, right? Now, given that, I actually did some comparison to see what was actually parallel and what was strikingly parallel and what is different, right? If you think about certain things that are common, actually, when it started, both the revolutions, it clearly meant that there were foundational technologies that were going to change literally every other industry in the world, right? Make no mistake. Both electricity and AI were very similar in that front. Then, when initially they came on and they started to scale in adoption, they were actually met with a level of sarcasm, right? Initially, in terms of like, hey, skepticism, sarcasm, what is it going to do, right? The next thing is, the way these technologies were evolving, people actually were at the nibbling at the bits, right? Like in the old days, they were actually throwing probably like a motor at the end instead of like really attacking the steam engine in the middle. Similarly, I'm sure a lot of you can relate, in organizations and in some teams, they're nibbling at the bits instead of doing a rethink by saying, hey, can we actually just throw in a chatbot that can actually go cover this piece, right? And do a GenAI piece here. So those are some of the similarities in how they are. Obviously, when you come to the differences, the first thing that comes to mind is the pace of adoption, right? It took several decades for them to go from 0 to 100 million, whereas, as most of us know, 0 to 100 million for ChatGPT was only a couple of months, right? The other thing that's different now, and why it feels a lot more palpable, in my opinion, is, it used to be that a lot of the revolutions would happen in the West and then slowly trickle down to the rest of the world, right? For the very first time, I feel like most of the globe is actually in on it at the same time, and that energy is actually palpable when you see a lot of data that I'll share with you on, right? So given these striking differences and the similarities, one thing that I want to say is, the way AI is actually going to impact individuals, organizations, and countries are actually is of like paramount importance. I mean, all of us probably, I don't know if we'll see anything like this again. So it's important to see how we can actually set ourselves up, our organizations, and the country up for success. For something like this, wouldn't it be great to actually have like a crystal ball that actually tells us how are actually all of these folks changing? How are they transforming, right? And at LinkedIn, we have just that. It's called the LinkedIn Economic Graph. It's actually a graph that's built on all of these pillars. As you can see, huge amount of data we have. By the way, it is not just a static graph. It's actually a dynamic graph, right? So every minute on LinkedIn, this is what is happening. 70,000 connections are formed. Close to 10,000 people apply for a job. 148 hours of learning. Every single minute this is, right? Close to 2 million feed updates that people are viewing, and 90 people add a new role, right? All of this is happening in a minute on LinkedIn. Now, given what we have, it's not just about what we are seeing, but where the professional world is going, right? So we're able to see what are the skills that are coming up, what wasn't there before, what are the jobs, what type of courses are institutions offering, right? All of this is actually visible. Now let's take a look at like a couple of data points that are actually, very telling from an AI perspective, right? So if you look at, 2016, this is less than a decade, right? Less than a decade, 36% of the skills for jobs have changed. 36%. Less than a decade. If you think about that number is actually big, wait until you see this, right? It's projected to change 70% by 2030. 70%. Let that sink in, right? I mean, we talk about folks' careers being like, 35 years and so on. So in 15 years, 70% of your job is changing. By the time all of us finish, how we started is going to be very different than how we end our careers, right? That is the amount of change that's happening. Now, when we talk about when skills are impacting, let's talk about jobs, right? The expectation is 90 million plus jobs will be displaced, right? This is the reality. When I say there's the unsettling feeling, that is because of this. But here's the brighter side of the coin, right? 170 million jobs are going to be created. 170 million. That is the brighter side of this, right? Now, if you think about from an individual's perspective, they're wondering, okay, all of this is great, Malai. What is it that I should keep in mind, right? Like, how should I think about my career? Now, let me start with my own personal journey, right? I actually am a mechanical engineer by, my education. While I was doing my engineering, it was not another 4-year engineering course. It was a 5-year mechanical engineering course, where every single day I had to go both to college as well as to the industry so that I can become a practical mechanical engineer. Loved it. It was a very different experience than anything that I'd experienced right here in India, in Coimbatore. But while that was happening, something else happened. I actually was also smitten by the technology bug, right? I went to a college where initially the computer center was open only for what was called circuit branches at that time. Slowly they opened it up for mechanical engineers. I started playing around. It was until like 8 p.m. They opened it till 2 a.m. It was like a party in the computer center by staying late, just learning new skills. One thing led to the other. I found a job with Infosys. I was very curious in terms of like, hey, mechanical engineer, they were hiring. This is still, I'm talking about the 90s, by the way. I'm dating myself. But after I went to Infosys, something even more, something that occurred to me that was, I thought like I would be an outlier in a company like that, which was definitely a tech company in those days from an IT services company. But I saw people that were, coming from an economics background, a chartered accountancy background, textile and metallurgy engineers just like me, which are non-circuit branches. What occurred to me is obviously Infosys didn't hire me for just because I learned coding on the side. They hired me because I could do problem solving. I could do critical thinking. I brought a sense of curiosity to it, right? So that led me to believe that, those are the skills that are going to be consistent, that are going through irrespective of whatever technology revolution that we go through. So it's actually worth noting that, right? Now, one thing that I want to talk about here on this slide is I know that something similar is happening right now, where there are marketing professionals and analysts right here in Bangalore, maybe some of them are in the room, that have pivoted to AI-based roles because they've picked up skills like predictive modeling and AI tools, right? This is exactly how we think the future is going to be. While degrees are going to be important, skills are going to be the new currency, right? Make no mistake, skills are going to be the new currency. How do we actually ensure that people are continuously upskilling is going to be the biggest thing that we have to look at. Like I said, they did not change degrees or pedigree. Instead, they upskilled, right? This is the mantra of how I think we will see organizations invest in individuals as well as individuals invest in themselves. On something like this, while this is happening, professionals are thinking, what type of AI skills should I get, or what is top of mind for professionals, right? Again, our data actually talks about both the global and the Indian context. It's important, I see a lot of leaders here in the room, it's important to see what is driving a professional, right? What could be driving a leader could be different than what is driving probably an entry-level professional. You can see this is kind of what's top of mind, right? 63% across all generations are overwhelmed by how quick their jobs are changing. This is on a global scale, by the way. The next one is 62% of professionals are convinced that they have to have an AI skill. 62%. I'll show you a number on the India, which is even more compelling. The last thing is, there's a lot of young professionals, they know that they need to change course because they're entering the career and there's so much disruption happening, they don't know what skills they need to get, right? This is the global context. Now, when you come to the Indian context, 82% of professionals plan to look for a new job this year. 82%. 82% of professionals plan to look for a new job this year. 78% of Indian professionals are optimistic about the ability. Like I said, this is the 63% overwhelmed globally, 82% positive in India, right? This is how the Indian talent is looking at this. The last thing is pretty important, right? 85% of Indian professionals feel like upskilling is going to be so important in terms of how they're going to invest their time. 85% are very clearly convinced that they're going to invest in upskilling. Now, if you think about it, if in an AI-first world, professionals are ready. Professionals are actually ready to actually pivot in an AI-first world to gain the AI skills. What should organizations be doing, right? Let's look at that. Before we get into that, I thought I'll share a personal story. This is regarding my younger one, who's going to be entering teenage in a couple of weeks, which I'm more nervous about. But we'll talk about, a parent-teachers meeting that I ended up going. This was like 2 years ago. She's going to be 13. She was 11 at that time. So this happened yeah, a little over 2 years ago, I would say. And, usual stuff. We met the teacher. How is she doing? Is she getting into trouble? Is she okay in school? As we were just about to leave, the teacher leans in and says, I want to share something. And she goes, I gave a project to your daughter's class 2 weeks ago, and last week everybody turned it in. One of her friends just told me that she actually used ChatGPT to finish her project work, right? I couldn't know that, a single sentence like that would elicit a completely opposite reaction in my wife and me, right? My wife was upset. She was like, oh, you know what? Our daughter cheated, right? Me, on the other hand, you know what? My child is actually starting to experiment with technology, with actually using the resources at her, disposal. I thought it was pretty fascinated. And anyway, it ended up being a good discussion with with the teacher. And something that actually really caught my attention when I left the conversation was the teacher's approach. We talked about it. She's like, hey, you work in technology. How do you think this is going to evolve? We talked about it. And then as we were leaving, she said, based on what you just said, I think I need to change as to probably how I have to evaluate kids. If your daughter is probably one of the first ones to use it, I have to probably say I can give project work fully that can be done at home, right? Maybe I assume they will use these tools, come back, and then I have to build on top of that for a part 2 in class, and then actually really evaluate how they're doing. That discussion actually left something with me that I felt like there's something to learn from that. I can tell you over the last couple of years, I've gone back to that conversation multiple times because as organizations, if you think about when our employees are actually pushing the boundaries of what can be done with AI, instead of actually having a lot of the reasons around governance, check in with this, check in with that, are we really actually empowering our talent to actually go beyond and actually bring AI skills to bear, right? So I feel as organizations, it's a big responsibility to make sure that you're supporting innovation and not necessarily actually stifling it, right? Actually, on that slide, just to share, I think my daughter would be proud as well because I wanted to create a slide that showed that the husband was actually elated and the wife was upset. And obviously, I used ChatGPT to generate that. And I explained the story. I'm sure ChatGPT was proud of itself that it had a positive impact on a kid's parent-teachers meeting. So, moving on, if you think about what is the tone we want to set in our organizations, right? What is the tone we want to set? I don't know how many of you have heard about this. I actually use it quite a bit. We talk about building for speed versus building for scale, right? What building for speed means, the most important thing that you're focused on, you're actually running pilots, you're doing proof of concepts, that's kind of you're trying to innovate faster. Whereas when you build for scale, you're looking at, hey, is this repeatable? Is this reliable? Is this more efficient over the long run? Platform type approach, right? Again, I have been in teams, I've been in organizations where we've comfortably moved between one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum. But I feel like the moment in the AI adoption that we are in, unless there is something hard and fast where you have to be to the right, in this case to scale, I would urge everybody to actually build for speed. And what does that actually practically mean, right? If you're leaders where you have multiple teams working on different things, sometimes when you want to solve a problem, it's okay to let actually multiple teams use probably different AI tech, different AI solutions, and actually work on the problem. Because right now what you want as an organizational culture is actually get the creative juices flowing in the company, right? Obviously with some guardrails so that people don't go to the extremes, but that is the type of culture you want to build where actually people can go and explore. For that, you actually need to provide a little bit of the psychological safety for them to go try and test out things, right? If you think about an organization, let's say you work for a big organization, Malay, how can I do this at scale? Something that we have seen work, and it's still a work in progress, by the way, is, if you actually think about, just like an engineer, break down a big problem into smaller problems, if you can actually empower and enable different pockets within the company to actually reinvent their function to become AI native, that is the way to go, right? Because too much starting at the tone at the top, by the time it comes to the end, it actually fizzles down. If it's bottoms up, it never gets. But I think at the function level, people that understand their domains better, when they start to actually look at this, they're able to influence up, they're able to influence down, sidewards as well. So this is something that I would say I urge all of you to just think about in terms of how you want to build for speed. The other thing I would say is, if you remember the electricity conversation, people are like, oh, I'm going to wait and see how this pans out. who knows, just like some companies went irrelevant in that age, we could actually become, like the opportunity cost of not jumping on something AI related right now is so high that you don't want to be on that end, right? We talked about the tone at the top. Let's talk about a culture, right? I think, when we talk about the culture, this particular diagram that I have is probably very familiar to a lot of you. We talk about the comfort zone. I mean, the example I can probably take is for someone like me that doesn't know swimming. What is the comfort zone for me? Right here, land, right? But if I want to actually stretch and learn, most likely, if I just imagine how this is going to happen, my kids know swimming, they're going to be like, hey, get in the pool. I'll probably even want a life jacket, even though it's the shallow side of the pool. That's how scared of water I am. But I'll get in there, maybe start to try to float and so on, right? If it was my bunch of friends, I know what would happen. They would push me to the deep end and say, go figure, right? Obviously, that would actually be a panic creation that's happening. So as leaders, I think it's important to say that, especially where people are actually trying and putting themselves out to try things on AI, the stretch zone is where you want your employees to be, right? I think it's really important. If they're actually in the panic zone, it's your job to actually pull them back, right? I'll tell you, as leaders, everybody has their own style, but it's worth looking at saying, hey, more than normally, you should actually lean in and spend time with your teams here, because it is not the time for delegation and go get this done, because it's unfamiliar territory for everybody, including you. And so if you see people in the panic zone, pull them back, give them the comfort so that they can actually work in that. And the opposite of, like, if you feel like there are people in the comfort zone, I mean, one thing I would say is, again, from the electricity analogy, people that spend too much time in the comfort zone and are wondering everything will be ready, most likely will go to the panic zone directly, right? So I think it's very important to make sure that as leaders, continuously looking at, are the teams actually in the stretch zone? And you're giving them the psychological safety to do that, right? I think that's an important part of setting your team up so that even if they fail, they know that you got their back, right? Now that we've talked about like experimentation and like, moving fast, now let's look at, what the skills that are required to actually, execute on this are going to be, right? We're going to look at LinkedIn skills on the RISE report. By the way, this report is public. You can go look it up. It's called LinkedIn Skills on the RISE report 2025. We released it a few months ago. It's worth looking at this. While I share the data, it'll be obvious to you, but I'll just make a call out, right? On the tech and AI skills, you're going to see a lot of the skills being impacted because of the AI adoption, very clearly. And then on the human skills, you're going to see that some of that are still very relevant as they were, and they will continue to be. Now, if you look at the top 5 skills that came up on the tech and AI side, the top 3 probably a few years ago was not even in anybody's like dictionary, but they are more common right now. AI literacy and prompt engineering and familiarity with LLMs are like, obviously the top, as you would imagine. The prompt engineering always reminds me of how I have actually looked at leadership. I read it somewhere or heard somewhere that stuck in my head is leadership is not about having the answers, but asking the right questions, right? Folks that are actually playing with LLMs all day know that if you can ask the right questions, it'll get you what you're looking for. If you don't know what you're looking for, it's going to give you crap, right? So I think it's an important skill. Something actually to talk about that as well is, I can tell you when I was a kind of an entry-level engineer, a lot of my seniors actually used to tell me that, like, early years, keep your heads down, focus on execution. You can work on your leadership aspects later, right? Honestly, until a few years ago, that is what I was telling junior engineers as well. But given what we are seeing with a lot of tools being available to do a lot of the jobs, I think folks have to get on picking up a lot of these human skills that I'll talk about much earlier on than what it was. Because there used to be this big execution early part of the career mantra that I think is slowly fading away. The fourth one is obviously something that's impacted because of AI. A lot of you here would know. 3 years ago, that would have read just coding or programming. Now it talks about code review and debugging skills. Obviously, with the assumption that more of the coding is actually going to be done by the tools. So you're going to be the human in the loop. Are you actually having the right skills to actually go review and debug, right? So that's another skill that's impacted by AI. As much as we talk about a lot of the changes, there's also something pretty solid in terms of foundation, obviously making sure your data structures is strong, right? That is still something that goes on. These are the human skills that came up as like the top skills, right? Something I want to call out. People, even after I put the slide, I thought like, maybe it is going to look like LinkedIn went and did, hey, let's go and do something on tech and AI skills, and then let's go do something on human skills. Just to share with all of you, that's not how we did it. We looked at all skills, right? And these human-centric skills also came up to the top 10. Pretty fascinating, right? In the sense of like as much as some of the what you would call like hard technical skills are changing on the top 5, these human-centric skills are also important. Like I said, previously when at least you could go and sit in front of the computer and code your way through for like a majority of the day, I think those days are being gone. So your ability to communicate, collaborate, and all of that is going to be like super important for you in terms of how you spend your time, right? If you just look at some of the examples, empathy, like I said, you can do anything you want. I know people here have been on both sides. I would imagine where, as much as it's work, you're going through something personally to go actually have a conversation. It doesn't even have to be a manager, right? To a colleague and like have that sense of bonding. I think empathy is something that will continue to be in our top, and I think that is just not changed. If you talk about communication and collaboration, obviously I've been around for some time where first when email came, people are like, hey, you know what? We don't have to have as many meetings. I don't have to talk to as many people. I'll just send an email. Then Teams came along and people are like, I'll just send offline messages. I don't need to. No way, right? Communication and collaboration continue to be even more important. As somebody that works in a global company, I can tell you, one of the things that we prioritize is making sure that people travel to different locations and make sure that we have the relationships that are built, because communication and collaboration are super important, especially as we go to things that are changing so fast. If you're not on the same page, if you're not communicating, if you're not collaborating, I don't think we're achieving what we can as a team. On the creative problem solving, I can probably go back to my daughter. Like she saw a problem, she decided to get creative about it in terms of using tools. I know as employees, a lot of our employees do that as well in terms of getting creative of how you can do problem solving. So these are, the tech and AI skills that are, showed up in our Skills on the Rise report. Something that I'll say here, right, is as much as these skills are, we've divided into tech and human, it's important to say that having a combination of this is really what is going to make professionals successful. Which means even organizations, as they spend time on this, how they evaluate talent is going to be very key in terms of how they do this, right? It is not going to be as much as on like, hey, lines of code created, right? Like, those were the number of PRs pulled. All of that is going to change. And so a combination of this is going to be important even for organizations. Now, if you remember, I was saying that, it's AI is, from an India perspective, it is actually a moment of reckoning for AI in India, right? And why I say that, right? Here is some more data points for you just in terms of what we've observed. AI skill penetration is among the highest in India. If you remember what I was saying, where, the West would do it and then we would actually come back later, that's not the case here, right? The AI skill penetration is among the highest in India. 4 out of 5 Indian professionals want to learn about how to use AI in the profession. If you saw that numbers in the previous slide I shared, globally it is 2/3, and then whenever you come to India, it's like 75-80%, right? Because there's a lot more positive energy of how people are thinking about like deploying AI in their work. This is an interesting stat we always love at LinkedIn. India learners spend, as all of you know, we have a LinkedIn learning platform, so we track, how much time people from different countries actually spend time on. India learners spend 50% more time than their global counterparts. So if you think that we're talking about asking people to like skill, reskill, and upskill, obviously it comes with a lot of learning. I've always joked around that, like, if it's in our DNA that, like, if you say, hey, we need to go get this stuff done, here's an exam, I think we have like this amazing DNA to go get this done, right? So from that perspective, I think knowing what skills, if you see what I like correlate what I've talked about, 70% of young professionals said they're looking for where to go skill themselves, right? Here we are saying that they're also spending 50% more time learning, which means helping them identify the right skill that they should be trained on and make sure we match supply and demand, like a truly marketplace effort, is really what will actually go a long way. When you think about from an India business leader's perspective, it's pretty telling that it's not even a technology priority for them, but really more a business priority, right? That is how they see in terms of how AI is. Entry-level hiring, this is an important one. I talked about demographic dividend. We have so much of young talent coming through in the ranks. It is nice to see that, 56% more in terms of like, where compared to pre-pandemic levels, it's gone up. Which means, making sure that this talent is ready for the new AI era, I think is probably like, of paramount importance for us. I'll mention a couple of things here, right? If you think about the IT service revolution, if you call it, that happened like in the 90s in India. I believe that is one of the first meaningful involvement of India in a technology revolution as it was happening. But I feel like it was, even though India was coming up with the solutions, the problems were what the world defined, right? We were executing on them. But I think given all the work that we've done in those particular industries, as well as the thriving startup ecosystem we have in India, I think we're really well set for a leap in the AI era, right? We just need to get our talent reskilled in the right way, and we are set up for the leap there. Talking about leap, I can also say that it's something very uniquely Indian of how we've actually leapfrogged a couple of revolutions, right? If you think about us skipping the landline and just going directly to the mobile revolution. Again, we didn't have like an account for every single citizen in a brick and mortar banking system, but we have this amazing digital public infra that we have from a payments ecosystem today. Which means, I think even the AI revolution, I don't think we should look at it with a sense of fear, but more an ability or moment to actually leapfrog, right? With that, I will leave you with a couple of questions. I would like to always leave with like folks for them to think. Like I said, I think folks here, honestly, are the ones that are actually going to have a huge impact on how we actually make or break what happens in this particular era, right? So one thing I would ask, I know all of you, the reason you're even here at Cypher is because you want to know what's going on, you want to learn, so it's not about you, right? Think about who you're going to help reskill or upskill. It's an important part of how you give back as technologists to the team, to the organization, to the country. The next one is, how are you creating space for learning within your teams or community? Ultimately, we are all social animals. We live in all these different communities. How are you thinking, how you're encouraging learning across all of these different teams and communities? With that, I will wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Malai. Okay, I've been telling you all, I don't know how many of you have been here since the morning, but I've been telling you all, okay, so I've pursued commerce in my life, and then I diabolically went for arts. Well, I'm doing quite well. I've worked with the Prime Minister twice this year, so we're fine. But I have to say this, Mr. Malai, the way you actually explain everything, it does, I kind of feel that there was something wrong with my teachers. Sorry, all my teachers. But I could actually understand everything, all the examples that you've given. Also, when he talks about upskilling, I believe that upskilling is the emergent situation of this era, because we are growing every single moment. Technology is vibrant, and we're just growing and growing and growing. So I kind of feel that, our parents could have resonated maybe a little with us, but the children that we're going to bear, I don't think we're going to be able to resonate with them on the terms of technology and a lot of different things, because mindsets change. But then we're going to have a more intelligent generation. And also, I feel that, in the coming days, we're going to need many more tech career counselors. So, I mean, that could also be your profession. All the people who are actually leaving, you're going to miss on the next session. This session is all about exploring the architecture and best practices for building a high-performance, AI-ready data center designed to meet the unique demands of AI workloads. This session covers the integration of high-performance computing, ultra-low latency networking, and high-speed storage solutions to create scalable, efficient data center designs that maximize AI performance. Our next speaker is Mr. Tarandeep Bagga. He leads the Account Executive Architecture at Cisco, supporting enterprise, public sector, and service provider segments across India and SAARC. He brings deep expertise in designing AI-ready infrastructure that drives innovation across industries. I'm talking about SAARC. When we talk about SAARC, I mean, not a tech chick, but my brother is in an IT firm, so I know that SAARC के बारे में जब भी बात होगी, so it's going to be legitimate and a very interesting topic, and many rather top IT firms are using SAARC, and they're actually excelling. So if you're in an IT firm or if you think you want to upskill, today is the day. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands up for one and only Mr. Tarandi Bagga. Come on.
Thank you. And great session, Malay. I know probably I'll do a bit of justice after this because we are going to get deeper in terms of how do we go ahead and build the AI infrastructure. I'm from Cisco, and I do this day in, day out, helping customers understand that how do you define your infrastructure, how do you define your use case. I'll start off with what Malay asked us to think about, that if you ask the right questions, only then you will get right answers, okay? Start off with a small story. We all heard about James Watt, who built the steam engine, a bit geeky, electrical engineers, show of hands. Yeah? Thank you. So when he built the steam engine back then, okay, there were coal miners who were going into the mines using horses to go ahead and serve that, okay? He built the steam engine, he started off, this is the best condenser, this is the best compressor, and people went, what? Are you talking about condensers, compressors, and so on and so forth? I don't understand any of this thing. James Watt went back to the design board. He came back and told to these coal miners that you would replace 10 horses with this steam engine. What that meant is you don't have to think about fatigue of horses, you don't have to maintain the horses, and boom, then the coal workers understood. What's the moral of this story? That you need, in AI wave, there's a lot of things going on. Back in 2022 when this all started, there were about 350K models. And since then, every 6 months we publish 350K models. It's important to understand what works best for your organization, what resonates, only then you'll be able to reap benefits. That's my session about. That how exactly you build an AI strategy for your organization and then define the infrastructure journey for this overall stack. What we'll talk about is operationalizing AI. I know when people hear about Cisco and an infrastructure company, they think that we are only going to talk about networking stack. It's not that. We'll talk about network, but before that, let's get into details of how do you operationalize AI journey. Then obviously networking is our bread butter. We will talk about network design, security, and we'll end it with a secure AI factory. Now, getting into operationalizing AI, a few of you would be thinking, why are we talking about operations in the first phase? Generally, you talk about the product and then you talk about the operations. But this is from an operationalizing perspective, understanding how do you define an LLM, how do you size it, and then import it on your infrastructure stack. So it's important to understand and break down how would you operationalize your AI journey. Now, a bit of peek, I think Malay covered this, but I want to give a different spin. We all heard about bell curve, talking about modernization journey, infrastructure modernization, virtualization platforms, VMware, Nutanix, and so on and so forth, Kubernetes. That followed a bell curve. What does a bell curve indicate? That there are few early adopters, then people wait, hey, is this working? If this is working, then we'll adopt. So that's where people generally adopt at a cycle when it is peak. But in AI era, right from 2022 in the launch of ChatGPT, ML was there from a long time. But with generative AI, we are seeing a tectonic shift in adoption, right? We started off with ChatGPT, then there was reasoning model, which is DeepSeek, then assistants, Agentic AI, and now we're talking about physical AI, right? So what does this mean is from a technology perspective, we would no longer see a bell curve. We'll see an S curve. By the time you think you want to adopt it, you would already feel that the technology is moved. If you're talking about RAG, then people are talking about Agentic AI. If now on Agentic AI, we are talking about physical AI. So in this particular journey for AI, it is important to start your journey today. It's better to start your journey today and go ahead and operationalize it better versus playing the wait game and waiting for technology to just evolve. Because a year down the line, we don't know how things will go. We'll have all physical AI taking up the space. We would also need to understand that there are architectural shifts when you go ahead and implement generative AI as part of your organizations. There are inference-led repatriation. When we go and talk to our customers, and I'm sure each one of you would be in this journey, where you would say, hey, cloud is the best world to go ahead and implement AI. Yes, it's definitely great to go ahead and run use cases on cloud. You could train on cloud, you could get the latest technology on cloud, but we are seeing once it moves from strategy to scale, that is you start with a pilot of 10 users, now you are an organization with 50,000 users, when you start the use case to implement at scale, then that inference leads to repatriation. What does this mean? Is for inferencing, that realizing benefit of AI, you would have to move your model to edge, to data center, to the user where you are, right? As simple as a chatbot to fetch information in the organization, right? So those sort of use cases are moving from cloud to on-prem. Second key thing is AI is network bound. As it moves to on-premise or it moves towards edge, you need a robust network to go ahead and build that. There'll be more robust security at every layer. The system is prone to attacks. That's where you have a security stack talking about the full stack solution. And you need hyper-distributed security. Security is no longer centered to your data center. Security is no longer centered to your phone. Security has to be everywhere. And then customers need choice of hardware, choice of infrastructure where they want to go ahead and build it. Now, these are few architectural shifts that we are seeing, or depending on the journey you are, either you've adopted AI, or you're thinking about moving to AI, or you're planning in terms of how exactly you go ahead and build this stack, this is where you would go ahead and land from an architecture perspective. Now, with Cisco, we propagate AI-ready data centers, which helps you build full stack solutions. We have thought for customers who are building their journey on AI, you need to no longer think about which location. You could start at the edge, you could start at data center, you could start from cloud. We provide the full stack solution to go ahead and build that. So we get into network, compute, AI models, resources, and help each one of you to consume AI as a service, that is outcome as a service. If you're building chatbots for your organization, you're building co-pilots for your organization, or probably you're building a content creation for your organization, all of this is abstracted, and what you get is everything as a service where we help you define the model, build the model, develop the model, train the model, and also observe the model. That's the full stack solution that we offer. We'll get into weeds in the next section. Now, this was about how do we go about and select the model. Second is how do we right-size the model. Okay. Now, like I said, there are a bunch of models that are available in the industry. Depending on the use case, we help you define the model. So we offer AI assessments where we sit across with your set of people, your set of line of business, to go in and understand which model is the right fit. Once we get to the right fit model, I'll kind of run this one simple log of how do you go ahead and infer the model. I'm not sure if you're able to read this, but what is the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything? Any guesses? I have prizes who can guess from where it's picked up. No, I'm joking, there's no prize, but any guesses? It's Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy that took 7.5 million years to give an output of 42. What is the significance of 42? There's no significance. There's no purpose of life. Each one has to go ahead and define life, right? I've just put that in context of a RAG-based application or an inference application. So this question gets into tokens. What is tokenization? Is simple translation of words into digits, because as computers we still understand digits, right? So it will translate into digits. And then there is prefill. What does prefill do? It will build model weights. What are model weights? That it would start assessing what should be the response for this particular question, right? Once you get into these details, there is something called as KV cache, okay? Key value pair cache. Not sounding geeky, but it's important to understand that how this works. Only then you'll be able to build the right infrastructure for that. It's easier to go ahead and consume something once you're building for 10 users, 20 users. But if you want to scale, you need to actually understand how this works. So then after that, there is decoding loop. Decoding loop is building the analytic capability, feed to the model, and understand how and what response it needs to give. Okay? So these are the steps. And ultimately, it's de-tokenization, that's where we get the output. And for this question, we all know what's the output. The answer is 42. What does 42 mean? There's no relevance, because everybody has to go ahead and build his own purpose of life. Now, why did we run through this? As part of this journey, you have to figure out the longer the prompt, okay, the bigger the KV cache. The larger the KV cache, the longer time it takes to respond. That is what is important. Today, if I log into ChatGPT, I don't get a response, I'll be like, no, this is not usual, right? So that's what typically called as time to first token. That's the response time that you're looking at. What is the goal once you design this infrastructure is to optimize memory, performance, and cost. So whenever we think of operationalization or model efficiencies, we need to think about how do we optimize cost, performance, and memory so that we are able to go ahead and build this stack. I've built I'm sorry this slide is not visible, but I built an inference model. So there are two things that I want to talk here. One, as Cisco, we've launched a security foundation model where you as users could go ahead and access that. This is available on Hugging Face. Please go ahead and download that. Cisco has two models listed. One is with Foundation Sec 8 billion parameter model, and second is deep learning model. What does this do? The Foundation Sec models helps you go ahead and minimize attack surface. If you're looking for a right security model for your organization, this is the model that you should go for. What does deep learning model do? Deep learning network model is our analysis of all the Cisco devices that are available, helping to get root cause of this overall stack. So these are two models. The Foundation Sec is available on Hugging Face. 8B model, I highly recommend for users who are playing around in the security domain. Please go ahead and do that. Now, why this model is important is how do you size the overall setup? One is just raw size, that is, this is the model with 8B parameters. You generally need precision rate. So this security model is built at BF16, which is 2 bytes. So what do? The model is 8B into 2 bytes. So you need 16 GB of memory. Now there is a purpose that we are talking about. GPUs are the most expensive resource today, right? You can hedge it against any of the metal stock market. You'll see that GPUs are the most expensive resource today. We would love to sell truckloads of GPU to you guys, right? Because that's what we do for a living. But as customers and as people who want to adopt AI in the right fashion, you need to understand optimization of this stack. Now, to understand optimization, you need to understand the space of what's the raw model size. And there is an alternate method. If you see TensorFlows as part of this, you could go ahead and multiply that. So it's roughly the same. In general, size of the model, and then the precision that we are doing, just multiply that, you'll get the average memory size that you have to build. Then I talk about, we've spoken about something in the prompt of KV cache, okay? So there is an importance of KV cache and context length that goes along with this overall ecosystem. So there's a formula here. I don't want you guys to learn the formula, but I want you guys to think through when you're deciding a model and selecting a GPU, rather than just blindly go ahead and saying that, hey, this particular thing will require a 288 GB memory or 192 GB memory and so on and so forth. So with this, you get into per stored token, and basis that you can arrive at a GPU memory. Now, why are we doing this? You'd be wondering that, hey, I'm just bothered about my front-end application. My front-end application is, I need to build RAG. I don't want to get into all of these details. Cloud is the best way because it allows me to go ahead and build that. But once, like I said, I'm at the cost of repeating. Once you start from 10 users, go to 50,000 users, all of the costs start hitting you. Then you'll get constant emails from CIOs. Hey, what are you doing? I thought it's a simple knowledge chatbot or a knowledge copilot application. What are you going to do going ahead and building that? So this is why we get into the details of how exactly you decide the memory for your GPU from the model perspective. Now we've decided something on memory stack, and I spoke about knowledge copilot. So this is a RAG inference example for a knowledge copilot. For my particular model, I required only 33 GB of memory, okay? In that 33 GB of memory, there are other things that you need to think about, right? It's not just about the model. Once you start building your knowledge copilots, you would realize that you need now embeddings. You need vector database, okay? Then you need your data. For all of this, you need infrastructure to go ahead and build this stack. These are few costs, these are few things that gets missed out when you start building, when you start building something on your laptop. That you feel, hey, I've built, and I personally have 2 models running on my laptop, and I can create a RAG chatbot there. But as you move to scale, these are the things that start hitting. So what we've helped, or what Cisco is helping build, is something, a packaged solution where you could go ahead and host these models as part of your infrastructure size. So that's the reason there was a context of understanding the LLM, understanding your model, understanding that how you are building it, if no matter you're from application side, infrastructure side, network side, and so on and so forth, this is the language that we all need to understand. And again, I pick up that thought from Malay. He said that all of us need to upskill ourselves. This is the new sizing, this is the new norms from a best practice perspective when you start building your infrastructure. A shameless plugin of Cisco product. Now this is what we help go ahead and build that. We provide full stack observability with Splunk observability platform where you can go ahead and exactly assess what's your token usage, what's your response time tracking, that once you've built that model, selected the model, optimized that model, built it on a GPU, then how do I monitor? So this is how we go ahead and build that. Token usage per user, response time tracking, you can set cost analysis, and you can go ahead and build your own use cases or KPIs where you need full stack correlation. You can add this to how many marketing users have accessed this particular model. How many finance users have done that? What was my token response time for this particular project, and so on and so forth. So that's the art of possible with AI Observability Cloud hosted on Splunk, right? Now, getting into, we spoke about models, we spoke about how do you go ahead and build this stack, then what has Cisco to offer to help you build this full stack ecosystem? So Cisco offers full stack compute networking portfolio to help decide the right sort of infrastructure that is required to go ahead and build this stack. So we put across GPU accelerated systems, which is building the model or your data sets that you have to go ahead and build. Second is around GPU optimized system, if you're looking to optimize a particular model, which is the use cases of RAG. And if you're, like I said, inference repatriation for real. So if you want to do inference at the edge, we offer inference optimized edge-based solutions where you could go ahead and use the model. Now, if you are from an application side or you're a data scientist who say that I am just not bothered about infrastructure, why are you talking to me about infrastructure? I need to consume APIs, I need to consume tokens. Can you just help me do that? Then for them, we offer a package solution called as Cisco AI Pods. What does Cisco AI Pods help? We help customers use the model with full stack ecosystem, which includes compute, it includes GPUs, it includes drivers, it includes networking stack, GPU stack, observability stack, and help you deliver token as a service where you want to go ahead and build this stack. So there are multiple ways. The way we want you to lead is choice of infrastructure rests at your hand, and you could go ahead and build the overall stack. Now let's get into details of what I said is we'll talk about network because our bread butter eventually is network. Let's get into some details of how do you go ahead and why do we need 2 GPUs or 4 GPUs? This is one of the most common question that we get with customers. Here I've done my sizing. I've seen I'm using a Llama 8B parameters, and the memory, GPU memory that I require is just 33 GB or 40 GB. Why do I need bunch of GPUs, or why do we see, or why do we start hearing data centers of football size data centers? Why exactly this works? Sorry. So there are 2 different ways that you consume this stack. Show of hands, how many of you heard about the Llama 405 billion parameter model? Thank you. So once the model size increases, you need to split that model, right? There are 2 ways to split the model. One is you split the model within the GPUs, or you split the model across 2 GPUs, okay? And both are not mutually exhaustive. Both happen in your infrastructure depending on how do you build that. So 405 billion models. Within the GPU stack, when you go ahead and split that, there is a switch internal to the server. This switch connects each of these GPUs at 900 gigabytes per second. That is how you are able to run faster. Okay? 900 gigabytes is a lot of bandwidth. So depending on your model size, you start building it within the server. And if you start building a bunch of GPUs training that model, that means now you have to move from one server to other server, and then to subsequent server, and so on and so forth. So that's where the model has to talk outside of the server also. Are you all with me? Model talking inside to the server when we split, and because the models are heavy and training precision is required, then we go ahead and build outside the server. That is where connectivity becomes one of the most important factors going ahead and building this stack, which is popularly called as NV-link switches inside the GPUs and Rocky V2 communication outside the GPU systems. Okay, these are two key things you need to remember. Rocky V2. We all have seen KGF, Rocky Bhai. I generally say that Rocky has become the Ethernet. Rocky Bhai has become the Ethernet. In the Ethernet world, Rocky V2 has become so popular, right? So Rocky V2, RDMA over converged Ethernet. That is what we offer the best. We've been doing this from decades together to go ahead and build that. This is how one physical server looks like. When we think about data center sizes of footballs of a football field, these are the compute platforms that are stacked across physical racks, be it air cooled, liquid cooled, so on and so forth. These are the systems, heavyweight systems of 15 kilowatt stacked across the racks to go ahead and help build this strategy. Okay. Now this is where there is communication that gets into picture. Front-end communication, back-end communication, GPU communication, and so on and so forth. So this is where we talk about external connectivity. Again, tying this back to operationalize the model. I took an example of 8 billion parameters, but if you start building 405 billion parameters, you start building 70 billion parameters, and now with XAI, I heard that they're doing 1 trillion parameter models, then you need to understand and get this stack as part of your overall, as part of your overall ecosystem. This leads to network design. You need a tightly integrated, engineered system so that you get the right response or right latency of TTF, the time taken for first token, TTFT. That means I'm responding, hey, what's the purpose? I'm asking a question, what's the purpose of universe? Then to get that response, the first response is called as time taken. That's the first token. So I need to build my network in a way where I can reduce this, optimize this, so as a user, I am happy. When I go to Perplexity, I go to ChatGPT, I need the responses immediate. I don't want to wait for a longer time so I can get the responses. Now to do this, you need to design the network in the right fashion. It could be inference, it could be training, or it could be just general requirements. Like I said, it all starts with data. If I have to build my chatbot, if I have to build a knowledge copilot, or I have to build like a knowledge code assistant, then I need to have right data set. I can build a chatbot without the data, it will not mean anything. It will give garbage in, garbage out, right? So you need the right data. Classic example, if I am a sales guy at Cisco and I need a model to go ahead and predict what is going to be my forecast, I need to send the model that, hey, this is the data. This is what was there as part of as part of my earlier forecasts. Only then it will be able to predict. In general, if I go ahead and say, hey, give me the forecast, it will definitely give a number, but it will have no correlation. That's where the heart of things start with data. You need to have your data cleansed. Now, data would require certain type of infrastructure, which is networking and compute stack to go ahead and build this journey. Once you have the data, then you feed the data to the model. That is where training happens. Okay? Training is network intensive and data intensive design where you need to define your network. So general requirements of training are high bandwidth because there's a lot of data, And like I said, one model with bigger parameters needs to talk to next GPU, needs to talk to server at the next GPU, probably a server in a different server hall altogether. So you need non-blocking. What does non-blocking mean? That it should talk seamlessly with zero latency, no loss. So these are typical training requirements that go ahead and that go ahead and fall as part of training requirements, right? Now, from an inference perspective, what is inference? Once I get my output, that is inference. To get inference, I need a low latency kind of requirement, so that when I am inferring something, I should get that immediately. In our example, Hitchhiker's Guide, what's the purpose of life? I should immediately get 42. I should not have to wait for 7.5 million years to kind of wait for this particular, wait for the output. So that's the inference requirement, which is lower latency to go ahead and build that. And then as part of your data center, you'll have generic requirements. Whatever I'm building, I should be able to visualize this. I should be able to monitor it. I should be able to see what's happening when data traverses from one GPU to other GPU, or data traverses from one switch to other switch. I should have enough amount of visibility and telemetry so that I can understand what's happening in my data center. Otherwise, there's no purpose. If I'm building something with no visibility, then it doesn't mean anything. That means it can break any time. It can act funny at any time. I will have no root cause analysis to go and build this overall stack. So these are few key requirements from a networking perspective. Now, we cannot run network as isolation. There is model. We spoke about the model. Then we spoke about the compute stack. Now we are talking about the network stack. These things do not work in isolation. All of this has to be tightly integrated between software and hardware. Now, this is the typical cycle or a typical platform that you would go ahead and build. You see this, these are a bunch of GPU stack. It will have NIC. NIC is an interface card where you go ahead and build that. Then you will operate all of this with Kubernetes, CUDA libraries, NICs, and frameworks. Again, I have prizes for anybody who can remember these acronyms, CUDA, NICs, and there are a bunch of them, right? Why these are important? If you start building stack without taking into consideration how you're going to access it, you are bound to fail, right? So you need to understand correlation between Kubernetes part. It's easier to go ahead and access something on, say, Amazon Bedrock, and hey, build this particular model. But once you get into the infrastructure side, you need to understand or correlate Kubernetes, CUDA libraries, NICs, which is NVIDIA collective communication libraries, and the AI frameworks that you need to build as part of the overall stack. So this essentially travels, the full stack travels from one system to other system, from one particular compute network to the switch, to the switch and the compute network, which is there at end of your row, which is end of your data center. So anything can happen there. So all of these are tightly integrated. Okay. Now this is a design which is most popular, and this is what is most recommended from NVIDIA and other providers who provide this, who provide accelerators. It is popularly called as Rails design. Now, why a Rails is important is to adhere to the requirement that we mentioned, which is non-blocking design. Each server gets the right amount of bandwidth so that we are able to build full stack solution, essentially helping customers to achieve full Rails or a full design to get your training infrastructure done, right? So that's a brief about the Rails design, what we go ahead and build, why we go ahead and build this stack. Now, it is important to understand that how one particular switch communicates to other particular switch. These switching happens through packet spray. What does this mean? I have a model. This model has certain parameters. This model has to talk to another set of server, which happens over packet sprays, right? So we spray the packet. Think of it as a huge train. We want to send folks in the bogie where there are seats available. We don't want to send folks which is overcrowded. If a train bogie has 72 seats, I don't want to send 73rd person in the same bogie. I want to send somebody in a different adjacent bogie where there are enough seats available. So that is what we build with packet spraying or per packet load balancing. Now, all this complex technology that I spoke so far, it is difficult to build if you start building each and every component as stack. I've just touched 10% of what all goes as part of building this design. So for this purpose, what NVIDIA is built is called a reference architecture. Okay? So there is an enterprise reference architecture and a cloud reference architecture. If you're an organization who's building knowledge co-pilots up to 1,000 GPUs or any of the use cases, it falls under reference architectures. And if you're building beyond, it is a cloud reference architecture. Okay? Why are these reference architectures built? Is to promote sovereign AI. That means I want to build everything locally in country, including my data and data centers. Like I said, data is the key. You need your data centered in a location to go ahead and build this stack. Now, as Cisco, we are the only networking vendors that go ahead and build a reference architecture along with NVIDIA, calling it as Cisco Enterprise Reference Architecture. How does this help for people like you to go ahead and consume this is if you're building any AI application and you're stuck in this journey of how do I define the model, how do I help operationalize the model, which GPU stack to select, which GPU vendor to select, which compute platform to go ahead and build, which networking platform to go ahead and build, we help go ahead and package all of this together in a form of Cisco Enterprise Reference Architecture, right? Are you all with me? We started off, we touched upon full stack AI journey, right? And that's what we wanted to cover in terms of how do you operationalize this AI and what are the best practices to go ahead and build that. As customers, we give you options of 3 stacks to go ahead and build this. You can build custom, which is build your own solution as part of your data center. Second stack is we help you build this as a service. I started off with a section that Cisco is helping build as a service offering where you don't have to bother about anything. You don't have to bother about all of these complex terms that we spoke about. You just have to consume token as a service. So those token as service stack, we can help you go ahead and build as part of a SaaS-based solution. So we can meet you where you are. The choice of stack retains at your end. So these are reference architectures which are published online. I would strongly encourage to go ahead and get well versed with these reference architectures that we've built. Now, most important aspect once you've built the design is security. How would you go ahead and minimize attack surface? Today, even if I install a model on my laptop, I'm prone to an attack. I don't know from where I'm downloading the model or from where for what exactly happens when a user goes ahead and accesses a particular model. I'm not really sure what's the source of the data. I could go ahead and ask, as an organization, I can go ahead and ask that, hey, what's X person's salary? The model is not supposed to give those details. So those are certain guardrails. So you need to embed security at each and every layer that you go ahead and build, which is embedding security at access, preventing customers access. Second is preventing customers in your infrastructure stack, that how do you kind of protect them. And third is preventing customers to build malicious models. So we propose a hybrid mesh firewall that helps protect all of these 3 solutions, where you can protect your users and customers at the edge, you can protect them at the data center, you can protect them at the model level so that you're able to go ahead and build full stack solution for security stack where you have visibility and you can build with confidence that each of the layers that are there which is protected. Now this is standard stuff which customers have been doing. What we do differentiated is we provide a single security posture for edge, for data center, or for cloud so that we are able to give full stack visibility of the security stack. We have expanded this solution to a portfolio called as AI Defense. AI Defense comes from our acquisition of Robust Intelligence. How does AI Defense helps? It gets onto the model level. If you're running, if you've downloaded Llama 13B parameter, 70B parameter, or you're using OpenAI, or you're using a model on Azure Stack, or you could go ahead and leverage this so that you are able to go ahead and detect in case there is an issue on model security. We use red teaming algorithm that helps to protect what you are building. Either it could be at the building phase or consuming phase, or it could be at access phase. You could just block that, don't access anything from OpenAI, don't access anything from an open source Hugging Face model, or you could go ahead and build the way that is required, right? So that's the power of AI defense. This is just a snapshot of how AI defense work from an application perspective. Now, all of this needs to be built together, right? You can run things in isolation, but then you start off with the risk of building this overall ecosystem. That's why you need to start bringing all of this together. This is what we announced along with NVIDIA, is bringing secure AI to your enterprise. We call it as Secure AI Factory. We are the only vendors in the industry who's helping customers realize true benefits of AI in enterprise space, where we get compute, network, security, storage, and observability, helping you build full stack ecosystem so that you can consume your knowledge copilots, code generation, virtual agents, or any use case that you're building comfortably as part of your data center stack. And there are a bunch of analysis that we can share as a follow-up, where your return on investments on cloud versus on-prem, once you scale, on-prem works out to be far more better for a bunch of issues: cost, security, privacy, data sovereignty, and so on and so forth. Now, this is how I end my section, because we started off with this full stack, and I have a habit to recap so that we grasp, depending on us, we grasp 10%, 20%, 80%, or 100%, depending on the audience that we have. You could be an infrastructure network guy, compute guy, security guy, or an application guy, then Bits would have helped you go ahead and build that. But this is the section where I kind of recap that we help customers build full stack ecosystem with Secure AI Factory. It starts off with, not with infrastructure. This journey is not about infrastructure. It starts off with model. You decide what's the model. We kind of help organizations decide through Cisco AI assessments. Then you right size the model. We got into details of how do you go ahead and right size a particular model. We help you go ahead and build that model. Then you transpose that model on infrastructure. That's where the compute GPUs comes into picture, okay? That's the discussion all about with NVIDIA, AMD, and a bunch of other hardware OEMs there. That's the third leg. The first two legs are defining the model, deciding the use case, transposing that in your infrastructure stack, building your networking layer, building your security layer, and having this consumed all of this as part of one single stack.
Artificial intelligence and content creation and influencer economy. So before I begin, I want to understand and get a show of hands. How many of you here have seen India's Got Latent? Samarana fans in the house? That much? Like, I thought Samay was even more famous. Yeah, okay. So when India's Got Latent was on, there was one particular video of Samay Raina and another social media personality called Poonam Pandey in an intimate scene. The reason why I'm starting this entire conversation with that particular thing is because when it comes to content creation, artificial intelligence, and Indian context, do you think we have a unique problem in front of us, especially when it comes to education and the adaptation of it? I think we'll start with Siddhant.
Yeah, I hope you guys can hear me. I completely agree. I think this is like another kind of challenge which we are facing. And to be honest, I think I'm also guilty of this, because we put a lot of AI content on our social media, and I think that's something which we started doing it. But if you're asking like me, like how this is changing our say social media ecosystem, is people who do not have, say, awareness that what is the AI content versus what is the human content, these guys are not able to like tell the difference. On the other side, people who are aware of that, how to create these kind of content, they are like, they have like incentive to basically like go and like push this content, because this kind of content gets more virality, more views. Hence, like they can maybe like use these views to like monetize it and stuff like that. So I think major concern and major question for all of us to answer here is today that how would we make the entire population more aware through our content, like especially people who do have reach, and how can we like make them more aware that how do you detect these things? For example, like the deepfake detection, there are like multiple tools out there which you can use today, and yeah, I think like that's the major part for us, and this is something which I'm actively doing as part of our community. We're like making people more aware on how to detect these deep fakes and like understand the difference between AI and the human content. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the most important part is like how do we educate people to utilize the tools in the proper manner. I think Arsh, what do you have to say on this?
Yeah, I think I agree to what Siddhant mentioned. It's more around awareness of things. If we are aware of what content we are consuming, I think that makes a lot of sense. India, if we specifically position, right, the major thing, the major advantage or a disadvantage at some point of time, we'd say, is the kind of people that we have, the population of India, right? So we have creators, and it's, I think, more than any other country in the world. So we have any creators, be it people coming from tier 1, tier 2 cities, even remote towns and villages. So the kind of audience that we need to serve is again a challenge, right? There would be people who would want to consume that kind of content. There would be people who would want to consume good educational content. There would be people who would want to consume entertainment content, right? So there is an audience for every kind of content. If you are able to create that content using AI, that will help you publish more of that content, more chances of getting viral, more chances of getting in front of more people and becoming big, right? So it's up to people how you are using the technology. It can be for good, it can be for not good. I think at certain point of time we would see some regulations coming into picture that might help us structure this well in some point of time. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think we'll come into the regulations of artificial intelligence and content creation in the course of this conversation. Priya, I would want to ask you as a creator and more specifically as a female creator, do you sometimes feel that, okay, the video which I'm putting out of myself can be used in the wrong way possible? How do you get over that thought process?
So I feel that with the advance of AI, everything has its own pros and cons, right? It's all depends on us how we are using it. And that's true that as a female content creator, whenever I used to create my videos, I used to create my courses, whether it's live or self-paced course. I always have that question that it might be the case that people can use these videos, capture some insights, and then they can put in a wrong direction, right? So what I really want to say over here is, see, everybody wants views, wants to get famous, but what is the direction with which you want to get famous also depends on us, right? So it's good to be viral, it's good to have more views, it's good to have more subscribers base, it's good to have more money, but that reach should not be subpar, like that's not the primary focus. What I feel, what's my thought process, like first of all, what our moral values are and what we are doing and how we are getting that specific reach. So try to use this AI, it's really good technology in a right direction, and then only I think we will be able to make something out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like sticking to moralistic thought process is absolutely important, but also models are quite subjective. And most of the people who are making these videos are absolutely faceless. So, Sagar, what do you think, how should these folks or the folks in general, or a larger audience can be educated about the usage of AI in content creation?
Yes, as we are Indians, as you said, the video get viral overnight when where Samay Raina kissing a Poonam Pandey, right? So they both came to their social media profile to clarify that this is a fake video. So the motto of saying this, like AI create a mistrust, right? So as the audience, we should learn what content is AI generated or what content is originally created. In education field, this is the most important factor we have to take care of, because using my face, if someone is creating a AI video or a deepfake video, right, they can put any other script that I haven't said. So in education purpose, AI is definitely leveraging creators in terms of doing research, in terms of putting subtitles and everything. Because what happened is earlier we have to read tens of websites and search Google to research about any topic. But nowadays using AI, it will take around 2 to 3 minutes to research about a topic. So yes, definitely it is helping educators.
Yeah, and okay, so while we go into the regulations and the education of it, and I think the regulations can also come in, deepfakes have been used in elections in the US, and also, I mean, could be used in the elections in this country. We have a bunch of elections coming next year and then year after that. But before we go there, let's take a step back into creator economy, influencer economy, and understand the usage of AI in your regular day. As creators, and Siddhant, we'll start with you. As creators and 100x, like you guys have done a really good job, and you have worked at AEOS, and I'm pronouncing it correctly, hopefully. They have really pioneered the usage of artificial intelligence in content creation. There are these really good examples of creators in India who have used AI at the fullest, and you have probably worked with them. We at AIM have used AI to create content ourselves. Where do you think the job roles will get morphed, especially due to AI, like say social media managers, content creators? Where do you think the job roles will get morphed?
That's a good question. I'll actually break this down into like two parts. I think one part is about like how can somebody use AI into content creation, and this is something actually started like 3 years back. So after the last exit, me and Varun, we co-founded this company called Avalon Scenes, and that got acquired by Graphy. And after that, we had this period where we are like, we just want to run experiments, and we got this like villa in the Indranagar. So we call this our hacker house. So the goal of that hacker house is we're going to live together and run these experiments every single day. One of the experiments which came out from that house is the AI avatar, and this was like 3 years back. We were working on the open source technology where how can we like clone Varun Maya's avatar, and even like Sid, who is my co-founder, he was starting 100x content. So the problem statement was so same for both of them. At the, I think, end of like 6 months of experimentation, we realized that Hagen was the first tool which came out, and we kind of like able to use the Hagen avatars, but the voice was the bottleneck there because their voice was like really robotic. So that's basically what led us to like discover more tools like 11 Labs. And again, shout out to 11 Labs. I think you already like have one of them team member from here. So these guys did a really good job in terms of cloning the voice. So that basically helped us to solve the voice problem. And then Hagen was solving the avatar problem. And then finally, we like with the next best part for us to like figure out is the research and the writing. And this is where Claude really shined, where like now Claude was able to like understand the context. So we can create a project in a Claude and we can upload our different scripts. By the way, we tried like at least 5 different techniques, like starting from fine tuning, even pre-training. So we were training like our own large language model from scratch, but realized that that's not the best approach. Did fine tuning, did in context learning, realized if you have a sample set, or maybe like if you have written maybe say 100, 200 scripts, the best way for you to maybe fine tune an AI is like just put everything in the context. This is called in context learning. And then maybe back then we were using Claude, and Claude was giving really good output. So all of these 3 tools became our workflow. Like tool number 1, which was Hagen. So we create our own clone. It gives us the avatar. Then we create our voice clone in 11 Labs. That gives us the voice. Then we use Claude to basically write and do the research. And then we connect all these 3 tools and basically put out like a simple video. Now we have an editor whose job is to basically now find the relevant B-rolls and attach everything. So the time for us to create a content, it basically drastically went down from what it used to take like 1 or 2 days to like do the entire process of post-processing. Now, like, so I think this was also one update which we did, like when Google I/O announced their updates, we were able to like ship the entire video in next 30 minutes. So which became like one of the fastest way for us to like ship the content. Now there are 2 sides of it, as you mentioned about the roles in the evolution. Initially, we got a lot of hate, like even like Varun got a lot of hate for this entire thing. It's like, why are you using AI? This is just like polluting the entire thing, very famously known as AI slop, right? But I realized that you still need the human in the loop, and that is where I think we are able to like differentiate. Like there are creators, there are like people who are running this experiment where they're using completely AI to automate the content and even put the content out. I think that approach might not work really well today because like, as Rick Rubin mentioned, right, AI does not have a point of view today. It is like the most, I would say, generic language or maybe like the content it can put out, right? If you just like ask AI to do that. But if you can use your own point of view and your own, I would say, insight, and then use AI to maybe like automate the part which is basically like anyways like gonna be automatable. I think that's the key insight what we got after this. And now in the evolution of roles, what I personally look at is that in future, most of the video editors and people who are working on these things, they will become channel producers. So we have a role called channel producer in our company where these guys like manage the entire team of video editors, writers, and presenters, and they basically like take care of like how can like we ship this video in maybe say less than 30 minutes, 20 minutes. And I would say in future, instead of them managing human beings, they can maybe hire AI agents, and that would also become like one of the thing. It's like one of the skill which Microsoft Work Trend Index report spoke about, right? Like how can you become an agent boss? That's gonna be like one of the I would say like upcoming skill set. So I think yeah, I hope like that makes sense. And this was like something which I was thinking about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And okay, so I have a counter question to that. Now, I have seen a lot of those videos, obviously, and the Google I/O event which you're talking about, and not only that, I think a lot of OpenAI updates which
Yes,
comes
yes.
in. Varun ships them the fastest, like even before anyone else comes in, Varun ships them the fastest. Tell me, how much time did it take for you to, and I'm going slightly deeper into this, how much time did it take for you to fine tune the model? Because we also have tried it multiple times, morphing H and 11 Labs to create a video avatar. And we have been successful in it, but I think the precision which folks have reached is because of fine tuning the model to a certain degree. So tell us, how much time did it take for you to fine tuning the model?
Uh, I think this might sound counterintuitive, but we didn't do fine tuning at all. We realized that fine tuning for a large language model is actually not the best way for us to train and maybe like I would say get these kind of outputs which we are trying to do. So what we ended up doing is what I was telling you about in context learning, where instead of giving it maybe say thousands of scripts, we have created like very specific roles for Claude. For example, like if I am talking about, so there's a new update in ChatGPT agents. So this is about like everything agent specific to ChatGPT. And I have a very specific style of writing, which I know because we have already written say 1,000 scripts in the last 2 years, that this is the kind of script which really works whenever you talk about agents. So based on our human insights, what we do is we curate like these templates. Okay, if I want to maybe create a hook for agent, this is the hook after testing like thousands of scripts, we realize that this really works. So we basically use these templates and then use AI just to like do the last, you can say 10, 20% of finish line, right? So I think that is also one of the reason why it is different and why it is working for us as compared to somebody who is like completely using AI to automate the entire process. That's what I said. Today, like based on all our research and all our testing, we realize that it's not, I don't think like I can trust, to be honest, AI, because I teach also about all these things. I can't trust AI to like write the entire script for me and also like pull views. I need that point of view and that human touch in this. So I think that's what we were able to do. So just to answer your question, we had understood the templates for each and every category. We have now these templates. What we do, this become like a boot, I would say the starting point for an AI. And then we basically like use it to finish the entire process of like adding the avatar, adding the voice, and then stitching this back to the video. Yeah.
Okay. Arsh, tell us about your regular creation process and the AI tools you have integrated.
So I think what Siddhant mentioned, right? The entire workflow remains the same for any and every creator. The same tools we have been using. I've been trying, not on my page, but on multiple other pages, trying to fine tune the model and also building a full AI agent on how can we automate the entire process, right? So I've done a video where I've explained it, how can that be done? And automatically that video generated can be posted across 9 of your social media handles on a set timer, right? You create a trigger wherein you go through the process. When there's a tool that spots trends, what all topics are trending. For example, I'll give them the keywords, for example, AI, technology, startups, or whatsoever. Then it will spot the trends. For example, in the last 1 hour, what has been the latest news across ET, across Times of India, across other platforms. It will come up, it will research 5 different topics, then it would take some decision on the basis of my content style. Like if at all, what has worked on my page before, if this is the trend, that would pick up. Then it will rate all those 5 articles. From that, it will generate a script. Again, the process of Hagen and 11 Labs for voice and for video is done. And after that, there's a certain API that will help me publish that content to 9 different platforms. For example, it would create a Twitter thread for that same content. It would create an Instagram reel for that same content. It would create a LinkedIn post for that same content. And this is how the process looks like. So this is something that's work in progress, not officially on my page. But at the same point of time, when it comes to job roles like content creator, a content writer, or a social media manager, right? I would say the more suitable word that we can describe would be a content strategist or a social media strategist that would replace a content writer going forward, right? So you have everything in hand. Not just writing, but you have different other aspects that a strategist can put in together, and he can be a single person handling everything, as he mentioned. So that's I think how this industry is shaping, and this is how we'll be moving forward.
Sagar, like, talk to us about the products which you use on a regular basis. Products and the changes which you have seen, especially in terms of job roles. And also, do you have like a team now? Like, what is the team size? What is, if you can explain the job roles which your team
Yes,
entails?
definitely. Like creating a video is not just talking anything on the screen. It's about the researching the idea, the words that we are choosing to speak in a video. Because we are creating for our audience, right? If audience don't watch the video, it will hurt the algorithm, and suddenly the video will get dropped. So we have a team who spend time on the topic research and the script and the idea and the editing, everything. The main thing we are leveraging AI is for research. Basically, if I have to create a video for my audience, I have to go to YouTube comments and read Amazon reviews. Like if there is a book published on C programming, I have to read reviews because there is where the actual question audience asks. So when you create a content that your audience want to learn, this is where your video go viral, and it is a very time-taking process. But after AI came in the market, it is just a task of 2 to 3 minutes. So research tool is using the chat GPT because that is faster than DeepSeek and any other models. We are using multiple AI tools for scripting. Let me clear, we are not using the fully AI generated script because if you fully rely on AI, people can smell the AI content, right? That will hurt the again algorithm. So AI plus your taste plus how you create trust to your audience, this will make a good content, as I can say.
I think I would like to add, even if not an AI avatar, but in general also, if you're creating traditional content that you have been creating from so long, so AI has somehow assisted in reducing the time span that it can be shipped, right? You see a lot of AI B-rolls coming in. People have combined Nano Banana with VO3 and come up with really cool B-rolls that would look very suitable for the kind of content piece. And that earlier, if at all somebody needed, like there was a need to design something like that, it would take them hours. For example, something now that can be done in minutes with a single prompt. So somehow reduce the overall time span for how people are shipping the content, be it in terms of editing, be it in terms of creatives, be it in terms of getting things done or strategizing, research in all phases. It has somehow helped us reduce that time.
You know, there's a very interesting angle to this conversation is media versus creators, and especially with the angle of artificial intelligence. And I'll come to that after Priya's answer, because that entails the angle of building distribution and building distribution fast. So Priya, if you can talk to us about the tools which you use, how your team has shaped up, or your content creation process have shaped up. Post that, we'll come to the media versus creators question.
So currently I'm working at Turing, and there all the tools that we are designing are completely based on Agentic AI and RAG applications. So few years back, if we will see, obviously whatever jobs, the AI-based tools today are doing, we as a manually doing everything. So I think Siddhant Harsh has given us several examples for the same, that how they are utilizing it, especially Siddhant in their company. So similar thing is happening in Turing as well. So it's not that we can put all the data on an open-based ChatGPT or Perplexity-based platform, and that is where RAG applications comes into picture, where whatever be the confidential data that we will be having in a company. So we are trying to use that in their own database system, and if let's say I want to access any specific data entry, any specific file, so I have a huge database system. Now, previously what was happening? There was some person who used to take care of all of these things, who used to take care that where that specific data is available, fetch that, and give us the results. Now we have a RAG-based applications where automatically all these things are happening. So one thing I really want to say over here that, already they have mentioned, right? It's not that 100% of the job will be taken care by AI-based tools. It won't be possible. I don't even think even after 5 years or 10 years, these machines will get so much advanced that there will be any human intervention. Or it may be, at least we cannot trust 100% that okay, everything will be done by AI and it will be 100% accurate. So there will be a need of human intervention, but it's just that roles will get changed. So as I think Sagar has mentioned that scripts are there, but it's not that we are just directly copy pasting those things. We are obviously on top of that, there should be a personalized touch. It should not feel that it's robotic. Otherwise, there will not be emotions after some point of time, everything will be robotic, right? So everything is there, and obviously there will be some more advancement which will happen. But at the end of the day, it's all about upskilling yourself, checking on to what things are coming up next, and see that how you can utilize onto that specific part and become an asset for a company. Even if you have your own company or you are working in that specific company, that's one of the most important thing that we should take care of. It's not that things are coming up and we don't even know. How can we use those specific things to do our task in an easier manner? For example, few years back, if I was writing a code, developing my end-to-end project, it was, let's say, taking me 1 month. Or doing a research, I have to take some books, I have to just check on Stack Overflow, I have just checked on Google websites. There are multiple websites. Now things are becoming very easy. So doing that 1 month of research, now it takes me maybe 1 week maximum, I can say, to build something. So the only thing is, how can we use that in a right direction? And that is where basically in my company I am using that specific tools.
Okay. Now let's come back to the media versus creators question which we spoke about. Now the reason why I want to delve deep into this is because I have, from a very personal perspective, I have seen both media and creators on either side. Now, if the utilization of AI can fast track building distribution, because that is where the real moat for any sort of a media entity lies, be it a creator or a media organization. Now there are these media organizations which has spent a lot of time over the years to build distribution, and they have huge teams. And then there is the Varun Mayas of the world who are building distribution extremely fast. And I have seen how business has also sort of moved in some extent when it specifically comes to content, partnerships and all of that. So how do you think that with distribution being built so fast, what will be the real moat for any sort of a media entity? I think Siddhant or Arsh, if you can start with.
Cool. I think for media, I might not be the best person. Like I'm a techie more. I would say I've been writing code from last 10 years, but I'll still give you like a perspective, and this is something which I teach about. How can you build a moat in the age of AI? Because every single software, every single idea, what you can think of, like the same guy who's sitting next door, they can also use AI, maybe replicate your application. So the question becomes like, how do you defend your business? I think, and this is where so I've written about, this is called my 3D framework. So 3D stands for data, distribution, and design. So starting from data, and you can actually apply this framework into any successful business. Just give you an example of 100x engineers. So almost 2.5 years back, we started, and we knew that there would be like, I would say more people who will start teaching about AI. And so right now we're solving the education part using AI, and that's one of the things we are focusing on. But we knew that the only way for us to differentiate is like, either we build our loyal audience, and we basically start with the distribution angle. And once we have that, maybe then we can like utilize the data and design a better curriculum, design like better services which can basically help them solve the experience. Just to like give you one example, which might not be directly related, but this is the experiment which we did, kind of an interview. So we asked the top teachers across the India, and we invited them in the studio. And we also like asked their students, we invited them as well. So in one room, we asked the teachers, do you use AI for creating assignments? And they said yes. And then in the other room, we asked their students, do you use AI to like solve these assignments? They said again yes. And then we asked the teachers, do you use AI to evaluate these assignments? They again said yes. So now what is happening here is that every single person is using AI, and human are just being a facilitator here. So, which is like kind of funny, but it's very concerning for our education system, right? Like, how would you trust somebody who is now graduating from the system, and like, how can they develop the critical thinking skills, right? What you need in today's market. And I think that was one of the eye-opener moment for me is like, I think somebody needs to like rethink about the education from scratch and from the first principles, because I don't think the current system is like helping all the students to develop these skills. And one of the things which I do a lot in my team is like, we do the thought experiments. Like maybe I'll ask like you guys also, if that won't hijack the time, is just say your kid, if tomorrow maybe you have a kid, or maybe anyone who is like learning in the school, they can access any information using ChatGPT or AI tools. What are the skills you still want them to learn in the age of AI? Maybe I'll start from you.
In media, we are taught never to answer, always to ask questions. So I think Arch can start, I think, by the time I'll think.
So I think this is a very valid question, and we also, I'll come to your question first, then I'll come to his. So he was talking about
I'm
mode,
glad.
right? Siddhant mentioned about loyalty of followers, right? But it's very subjective. For example, just take the example of Tanmay Bhatt. So there can't be another Tanmay Bhatt. It's very difficult to reach that kind of level. But he has been like updating himself, and he has been jumping on a lot of trends, and he has that loyal fan base. For example, he was into the Solana ecosystem when Solana came in. Then he moved on, he started a channel with Varun where they were talking about and reviewing AI. He's already into content. He is already into creating
Making ad
ads or
films.
writing, copywriting for
He's
a
an
lot of
investor
companies,
also.
right? So the kind of jumps he has been waiting, and he is kind of relevant to his audience, right? You need to stay relevant. For example, if with AI, the space is changing at very, like, it's changing very fast. With every single day we see updates from Gemini, OpenAI, and a lot of other companies. So how can we leverage that fast? I think that gives us a leverage, and that would be the mode going forward. That can be one. Coming to his question, what skills I think would be DJ? You have access to information. What we have been through the education system, where we have either crammed something to write in papers, write exams. We have spent all of our time writing assignments. We have spent all of our time attending classes, sitting in front of a teacher. In that 45 minutes lecture, I can cover that 45 minutes lecture in, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes right now, with the best possible visuals, with the best possible literature out there. So the skills, I think, one, information access is not a challenge right now. You can get that easy. How to have that emotional intelligence to process that information, I think that's something that would come into picture. You need to understand on how, basically, currently all companies are building AI agents. We have been building AI agents. The orchestration part is something that everyone is figuring out. How can we orchestrate different things together to get something, to get that output? I think the same thing. We have access of information. How people from that early age, maybe fundamental skills everyone needs to learn, right? You send your kid to school, he would learn something fundamental. He would learn the fundamental skills, and then how can we put that thing in mind? He is the best one to use the best technology available. So that's the thing, along with emotional intelligence. I think that would serve the.
Yeah, I'll come to Sagar after this, and then Priya. But I want to first counter, ask a follow-up question in that argument which you presented, especially in regards to Tanmay. This brings me to a thought process that, when with Gen Zs coming in and the adoption of influencers/creators, I don't like the word influencers, but like creators, do you think you're really getting the definition of building a loyal audience? Is it really that, okay, you push out content, or is it very characteristic and personality selling? Because people are associated with Tanmay Bhatt as a personality.
Yeah.
I think Varun's moat was that you push out the news faster than, say, any media organization is pushing out. Like 15 minutes after OpenAI gives out those 11 days updates, I think Varun was pushing it out in 15 minutes. I think everyone's attracted to the personality than the loyal. So I think the loyalty is all the personality. That is where the difference between mainstream versus creators coming. Am I reading it correctly, like Siddhant? What do you think?
I think you're reading correct on the influencer side of things, but what I am focusing on right now with the 100x is the community first approach of building. That's where I mentioned the loyalty, because maybe like if I start my own journey as an influencer, then I would take the similar route what Tanmay or what maybe like Varun is doing, because actually everybody is chasing the attention, and attention changes based on the taste of an average population. For example, right now, if you look at the algorithm of social media, that is a representation of a taste of how an average individual in India, or basically whoever is a target audience, what kind of content they consume and they like. Maybe today, see, the AI agents are trending, so they are like looking more at the AI agent content, and if you create a content in that topic, that will like maybe get more views, but maybe say tomorrow their new technology can come in, and that also changes, right? So that same thing, for example, like what we were making content 3 years back, we have a same, I would say, same script which we tried, but it didn't work after 2 years, because again, the taste has changed and it has evolved over time. So I think if you again start from that angle, yes, for an influencer, personality is one of the moat. But if you're building an organization, I would say having a community first approach has really benefited us, because so right now there are 3,000 people who are actively building along with like whatever followers we have. So, and these guys talk about like what they're learning every single day. So you can check out, there's a hashtag called hashtag 0 to 100x engineer. This is basically our 100-day of code equivalent thing. What we are doing is that instead of like us creating content, actually you guys should start your distribution channel first. And maybe like together as a community, we can basically maybe like create more noise on the internet and like attract more opportunity for this entire community, rather than me creating content for myself. And that is definitely like helped us. Every single student, by the way, who has created these content pieces for 100-day series, they have got some or the other kind of opportunity. So this is like a great start for anyone. Maybe if somebody is sitting here, wants to start your journey, maybe pick one niche, pick whatever you want to learn, and commit the 100 days of journey. You don't need to use like the hashtag which I told you, but you can use whatever you want. It's just that consistency really helps you. And if you're doing it with maybe say 10 other people, then cross collaboration, posting their content each other, that also accelerates and compounds. So I think that's basically one of our moat, which maybe if I could tell you, yeah.
Okay, Sagar, if you can add to that.
Yes. Basically, loyalty comes after a service when customer experience what you are providing. Let's say you're booking a flight and app shows you 3 airlines, right? And there's a huge price difference. You won't play a loyalty role. You go with the airline who offer you a less price. So in businesses, like at Coding Wise also, we offer services that's so good that people come to us. In business itself, you should not only use AI and expect that AI will help you to gain a loyal customers or a loyal audience. At the end, it's all about how you are providing services using AI. I'm not saying using completely AI, because your touch always required. So loyalty is something you should provide a service first, again and again. And in this AI era, there are too many competitors, influencers. It is very important to keep your originality, your taste, and your honesty, because nowadays, even earlier I get fear, like to tell my audience what content is AI generated or what content I originally produced, right? So it's all about like including your taste and having the honesty, like yes, this is my self-created and AI generated, because the thing is, service comes first, then a customer become loyal. You cannot expect someone to be a loyal without experiencing what services you are providing.
Last point, just wanted to add. For example, he was talking about persona, right? So people would see Tanmay Bhatt as a personality, and for people like us or somebody who is educating, we are more of an educator persona, and people don't see us as somebody like Tanmay Bhatt. It's very tough to do what Tanmay Bhatt is doing with AI. You can't imitate what Tanmay Bhatt is doing, but similarly, you can push out updates as early as possible using AI. That is possible, but AI can't make a Tanmay Bhatt clone and do the same thing that Tanmay Bhatt is doing, right? It's kind of difficult, and that's how the loyal fan base becomes. In education space, yes, as you mentioned, community first approach is something that we do. I also do a lot of experiments like these, a 45 days challenge or a 30 days challenge for software engineering. That helps, and because you're empowering somebody with something, so that means you are building a loyal fan base.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct, and that brings again to another angle to this conversation, that creating content for tech, deep tech, is how difficult is it, and how do you build a audience there, and Priya can answer this, than creating content for extremely mainstream topics like politics, policy, and sports. In India specifically, it's cricket, Bollywood, and politics. And then the startup wave came, and now the AI. Then in between there was a slight crypto wave as well. So how do you build loyal audience, specifically in this segment where there is very less glitz and glamour outrightly
That's true.
on the surface?
When we create these kind of technical based content, the obviously views will be less because everybody is not that much interested to go in depth. That's what I was talking to Sagar a few minutes back before this conversation, that people are very they like generalized content rather than a depthness of that specific content. And but as Siddhant has mentioned about this teaching part and the community part, I myself doing this from past 5 years, I would say. I am a mentor, and still every weekend I used to teach data science, data analyst based topics to the learners. And what I feel is that if we will be able to build the community, that actually I am able to build that because obviously I have a lot of years of experience. That's the first thing. Secondly, the loyalty which they're talking about, I can completely understand that people are very much interested. There are very few, but they are genuine. So they do put a lot of effort in terms of coming up on stage. For example, let's say every week I used to go and teach them live. But after that, we have a great Discord channel where they connect with each other. They are posting of YouTube videos of their own, what they have learned, how they have learned, right? Which influences other people also to learn from each other. So as a mentor, as a teacher, I would say my number one approach is to build a great community where people will try to learn from each other, and that's what I think I have done from past few years. Even though the numbers are not that much huge, but what numbers I have is actually genuine. I know that there are people who are waiting for my sessions, and whether they're 2,000, 3,000, right? It's not 3 lakh or 30 lakh, but quality is something which is there in this specific AI-based domain where we are doing our tech work.
I think it basically means that, like, if we have to create a solid moat in deep tech AI driven conversations or like content creation, then it has to be very core community driven.
Correct.
To sustain and to survive and to build that sort of a revenue channel so that it becomes an independent working organization. Now we are at the fag end of this conversation also, because I think we just have 5-10 minutes left for this. The last part is about policy and the government. So I would like if you're not comfortable with a particular answer or something like that, it's absolutely fine if you do not wish to comment on it. But this last part is about policy and a very important policy document, which is called the Broadcast Bill. I don't know if it's still called the Broadcast Bill, but it's not a bill which has been tabled in the parliament. It is a bill which is in conversation and has been doing the rounds for a long period of time. And this latent controversy also had some sort of a linkage to it as per media reports. Now what's very interesting about this policy document is that we had a media regulation policy before, which normally entailed only television media, print media, but did not have the OTTs into consideration or did not have online communities into consideration. Now this particular bill, which is supposed to be tabled, as per media reports, this bill will bring in creators as well. This bill will also bring in OTT as well. Now, from an artificial intelligence perspective and policy perspective, there's two very important angles to this. First angle is that AI will reduce the entry barrier for content creation. But this bill will actually do the opposite because you need to have CECs and all of those registrations and all of that. So people with like someone who's really young and does not have a lot of capital or understanding of things might not be able to create content because it will set up cap for it. So how does the creator community, or how do you look at it? Like, should there be regulations? Should there not be regulations? And the artificial intelligence perspective of it. Anyone can pick it up. This is the last
Definitely,
chance.
AI should be having some regulations because who should create a regulation? Like, who should give the independence? Like, AI will generate something or not? We, right? We are the leaders. We are the creators. And in India itself, people are not using AI to create content, but to create a mistrust, to create a post that are not actually like physically exist. So yes, regulation is required, but if we talk about the entry barrier, yes, definitely AI will definitely help you in terms of researching, in terms of learning. Like I personally use tools to learn new topics, learn new framework. Now, how can I script my video script that audience will love and engagement will be boomed up? So yes, it will create some kind of easiness for the new upcoming creators, and everyone should use AI, but not just fully depend on AI because AI itself name is artificial intelligence. It's not natural intelligence.
I think all the governments, not just in India but across the world, have been looking at AI very. like, It's not very clear on what needs to be done. I think EU recently passed an AI Act in which they had some form of regulations on not to more for deepfake a child or let's say an elderly above 60 years of age, because that's something that can be misused. And similar is because there's so many other cases that we have been seeing in India when it comes to people getting scammed. There's so many financial frauds or people not being able to understand, right? AI, somebody who is above 40, 45, 50 years of age, he or she might not be able to comprehend what is happening with him or her. So how government would come to protect that kind of an individual? I think that's the need somehow, and regulation would come maybe today, maybe an year after. But at the same point of time, when it comes to the broadcasting bill, right, I think it puts a stop on what my opinion is about certain things. So I think that's something that needs to be checked again. Not directly putting a barrier. For example, if I create a video, I need to pass it through a special regulatory check, then only I can publish it on my YouTube channel. So that's something that nobody would want to have in place, right? So giving my opinion on something that is not harming the national security or national India as a nation, I think that is okay. But if at all I am putting something on any other topic or anything that is not related to national security, or it's more of related to AI, then my opinion-based content should not pass any regulatory check. I should be free to post whatever I want, is what I believe.
You know, there are a lot of directors who come and say that their scripts get checked by lawyers more than their actors. So I don't know if we'll reach a state, but like coming to what you said, even with national security questions, like there are a lot of geopolitical subjects which creators pick up. Now, what is moralistically right or moralistically wrong are also questions there. And if a regulation comes in where there has to be checks in terms of content creation happening, will we see, say, another Urge Goel coming out? Is also a question, because then the cap is so high,
Yeah.
and the cap is so high that no one would make content. Priya, what do you have to say about it?
I think my thought process is similar. Regulations should be there, but it should not be like see, now the process is very smooth, so we don't want it to be very hard also. Because if it's a long-term process, everybody, like anyone who is just starting their journey, they will be having fear first before jumping ahead. They will be like, oh my God, this is something which I supposed to do. This is the knowledge which I supposed to gain. So it should be a balanced form where obviously there should not be that much leniency that whatever videos people are putting, they are having that sort of freedom. There will be a proper checks which will be there. But if at least the videos are based on AI or any educational stuff, where the intention is right. So obviously there should not be a long-term procedure where we have to pass through before posting it to the platforms.
Siddhant?
I think very sensitive topic. It's a topic of freedom of speech, what you basically opened here.
Yeah.
And I feel like, yeah, it's a very questionable thing, right? Like, I don't know like where to draw the line. You can say whatever you want, to be honest, right? And I don't think like freedom of speech in the constitution also like allows anyone to like not share their opinions publicly out, as long as you're not hurting anyone's sentiment or maybe like one or the other way, right? The only problem comes here is that like how do you know the nuances that like you say like these are the cases where okay, I've said something and that caused damage to other personality because of the trust erosion happened, right? So I think those are the sensitive areas. For me, like this is the problem which actually like AI researchers should solve because it's a content moderation problem. I think then it could lead to like better policy design. So like right now, like I'm working with like a couple of folks. So this is like from our IRS, which is like Indian Revenue System, and there are a couple of folks in the policy who are now like opting for the courses like ours to understand the application of AI in the moderation space, right? How can you use AI to like moderate the content? Because the volume of the content which India produces today, it's like insane, right? We have like almost like a billion people, and like you cannot like just use any manual approach to do that. In fact, I think this is like one of the active area where like our policy team is like currently working on as per as whatever I am aware of. And yeah, I think so that basically comes back to the question is that how should somebody regulate this part? It's again, I would say should come from the moderation first view, understanding and drawing the boundary between the freedom of speech and how do you basically say and evaluate that this kind of content doesn't harm others. To be honest, I don't have a clear answer right now, but I would say like, yeah, I think this is where the research should like maybe happen more and we should basically like figure out some or the other way to do that. But I definitely in the favor of having a clear regulation, which also like sets the clear boundary of within the freedom of speech. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what's most important is I think everyone, like I think the country as a whole, finding its moralistic line, that this is the line we will not cross. I think with that we have come to an end of the session. I think it was a great session. We really liked it, and I hope that with AI, Indian creator economy market is around $2 to $4 billion, if I'm not wrong, and like global market is around $200 million. So I hope that with AI and with low cost tools, it turbocharges the market, and we reach where we are supposed to reach as a country, and we're not the MIU farm anymore, and like we actually make numbers. Thank you so much. I think it was a great session. I don't know if you have time for questions, or like anyone wants to ask questions.
We do have some time for questions, ladies and gentlemen, so please
there.
do go ahead.
Right? Yeah. Hi, I'm Akash Kapoor. Thanks for the engrossing discussion. I just wanted to check, how do you ascertain the virality of the video? Is it just by the gut feeling, the agents are in trending and now let's do it, or is there any tool you use to check whether this video is going to go viral or not? I have a follow-up question as well, but answer this one and then we go on to the next one.
I think who wants
I think this comes with experience. Once you start creating, right, you'll figure out the trends. It's not just about trends, but what kind of audience are you catering to? For example, I create content in AI and tech space. I know what is something that would work for them. I can put a video with a very strong hook and it might not work. But if the video has value, I think that would work. It depends upon from niche to niche. The first thing for anyone who is thinking this question is to start creating content, and maybe then you will figure out what will work and what will not. There's no AI tool that can help you, that can 100% guarantee this is something that is going to work. There's nothing like that. This is what I feel.
Additionally, you can ask to your audience also. If you are a creator, if you're an existing audience, you can ask, you can run question poll. You can go to forums, read the question that or your audience is asking, and you can create a content around that. That increase the chance of getting viral.
Okay, so no tool as such. You want to add something?
Yeah, Priya.
Again, I think, I think the question which you asked about the virality, I would say, again, it's actually like a psychological question rather than like a more technical question. It's because, like, can I ask what do you do?
Yeah, I work for Oracle in GenAI Center of Excellence, and I'm a travel influencer as well.
Oh, interesting. So you create content for like people who want to travel or maybe like want to go, right?
Absolutely.
So again, this is about understanding the psychology of your target audience. Like if you are attracting people who likes to travel, understanding what will make them say spend time on your video, because just keeping yourself in their shoes, they would be like bombarded like every day with like thousands of reels. What is the I would say like one clear message you can basically like put across in their feed that will like make them stop? Understanding that these guys are also say interested in like maybe travel or maybe like looking at your content. So I would say like again the virality, like what Arsh mentioned, is comes with an experience, and it also understanding about the psychology of your target audience and then use these A/B testing to not have give you stats and
Huge influencer now. I'm a small, very small influencer, and but now even that is going down. So I was not sure if I should be researching on some AI tool and get some AI in. I don't know.
I just want to add a bit here. I don't think AI tool will solve this problem. The AI tool is just a creation tool. In the sense like you can use it to create, and also at the same time, I also have some questions on whether, say, YouTube or Instagram as a product is shadow banning if you're using AI in your videos. So that is also something which we need to think about. I'm not sure if they're actually doing it as a product or they're actually encouraging. Also at the same time, there are multiple ways to look at virality at the stage which you're in right now at the moment. I think what you need to look at is maybe look at 5 other influencers in your niche, which is travel industry, and see what are their best videos, which has been working for them in the past, say 3 months, 6 months. Reverse engineer the titles, make the videos, get the numbers up, and then it eventually flows. That's a very easy way to get some sort of a flow moving. But other than that, the like extreme virality which you see like top creators in this country get is when, is as rightly mentioned by Siddhant, is the psychology thing, is when 100,000 people think about a certain thing in a certain way, you are able to think ahead of them. That is when you get 100,000 of those views, because you're pushing the thought process a bit with every single video. So which is why you need to have that perspective of 100,000 and think better than them. That is when the huge numbers come in. But on a regular basis, if you want the numbers to scale up, I think just look at like 5 influencers from your niche, reverse engineer the titles, and push the videos.
I think repurposing your videos across other social media handles would also solve the purpose. You can get some distribution from Instagram or from other platforms that are very relevant. For example, travel content would be very relevant for Instagram audience, right? If at all you cut some snippets out of your video, if it's a long format video, or you shoot in a way that you have some portrait video and put it across Instagram, maybe one reel getting viral on Instagram, it's easier than as compared to on YouTube, and you can get some people going from Instagram to your long form video and eventually increasing your views, because we have seen attention spans reducing, right? For the past 5 years after COVID, we have seen the attention spans reducing. People don't want to watch a 15 minutes video where you are speaking about something. They would want to consume the gist of 15 minutes in 1 minute. So that's something that can be
You
tried
should
out.
analyze
Thank you.
your video with other top creators also, like in your industry you are doing well, and analyze like what unique they are doing and what actually I'm missing in my video. Right? Add your creativity, add the framework, add the tone or add the style they are using in the video that are getting huge views, and definitely you should get the same number also. And getting about viral means you should pick a question that everyone is asking, right? If there is a thousand people room and thousands of people are asking same question, then chances that everyone will listen. But if you pick a question of only 10 people, right? 10 people are asking the question. So then out of like 990 people won't listen you. So getting a viral is all about picking the question that everyone is asking.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Last two questions. And guys, I know that you must have many questions, but try to make it a little precise.
Hi, thank you for your discussion about the AI as like what you did, right? So I have a question regarding the scripting, right? What you guys do. I know right now you are having a team for scripting and you are using some AI tools. But before that, what is a rule which you follow, which you can discuss about, like which rule you follow for scripting for a basic idea, and like what are the steps you follow before the AI, like or the tools you are using currently? That's my question.
I think I have not been using a lot of AI for scripting. I'm still doing scripting myself.
Yeah.
When it comes to writing a script for a long format video, right? My videos are majorly educational videos, so I don't look out for a hook. But if you are in a generic niche, for example, politics, or if you are creating something on geopolitics or any generic topic which has a mass audience, right? You need to figure out that starting hook. Like if I'll speak this for initial 5 seconds, will people stop?
Right.
That's the first part of your script. Then you speak something, you start adding value. Then after that first part, you put something that people feel, this is valuable, I should watch this video, and then leave a surprise element, like this is something that's gonna be at the end. Or let's say, for example, if this is what people have tried out and it has worked for people, like these are the 5 things that will help you get rich in 2025, right? And the 5th one is my favorite. So it will help people stop till the end, till the 5th one, and your retention basically increases. The more the retention of your video, the more are its chances of getting to more people or getting more engagement, people sharing that video, right? So that's I think basic structure of a short form content. When it comes to long form content, it varies from people to people, niche to niche. What exactly do you want, or what kind of audience do you serve?
Yeah, totally.
You can use some scripting
Thank you so
frameworks.
Yeah.
Like AIDA is there, which is very famous. You first grab attention, give them an interest, and again, D stands for desire. And at the end, you ask them to take some action. That is how scripting works.
Right.
Like there are multiple frameworks you can use.
Thank you so much. Next and the last question of the day.
Hi, I'm Meher from Ernst & Young. We have moved from offline education. This is all about education that you've mentioned, right? So we moved a lot from offline education to online self-paced education. And now what's happening is we are sharing a lot of certificates online that you've done one course after the other. And what we are internally realizing also is the efficacy of those courses is getting lesser and lesser. Do you see that the trend would ever reverse and go back to offline education? and more immersive education using, say, AR, VR, using AI?
Yeah, I think completely agree with that. To be honest, like this is something which I am planning to do very soon. We realized from last 3 years we've been doing online courses. Although I love it, like because everyone can join and we have like now students across the world. The problem we have seen is the drop off. Even though so right now like our engagement rate is the I think I don't wanna again boast a lot, but it's like country's best. We have 49% retention on our first module, which means like all the people who start, and this is like the module which takes 1.5 months start from diffusion models. Even after that, we're not able to like solve the retention problem for a very long time. And recently we did this experiment, which was a 21-day challenge, which was completely offline event. So the idea is you can come up with your team, join this 21-day of journey, and pick one problem statement across AI agents, filmmaking, or LLMs, and build something, show us the MVP. And once you build it, come to Bangalore, we have a demo day. So there we basically introduce you to all the people in the industry. These are VCs, these are founders. As a result of this, what we saw is that people who were able to like build these kind of products in 21 days, it was like much more, first of all, like high impact as compared to somebody who was doing online with their own self-pace, because these guys don't have that, I would say, urgency to like complete something and also showcase it to someone, because at the end of the day, these guys are just doing a Zoom call. But when you come to Bangalore, when you basically like have maybe like an event like this, when you have maybe 2,000 people in front of you listening to you, the stakes are higher. And the kind of output and the kind of quality you produce is also much higher. So what we are trying to do currently is that combining these demo days after every, say, end of the cohort. So it's kind of going through the hybrid approach. The first 3 months, 4 months, you basically learn with us online, and then come for the demo day offline. So you have the high stake environment. And maybe like in future, we're also experimenting with like some hybrid classes for the last 1 month. But yeah, I think that's the very interesting point which you brought up. And I don't have a correct answer, but this is something which I'm currently experimenting. We'll let you know how the experiment goes.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. And that's our time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, what an inspiring day we've had. The insights, the innovation, and passion shared today has been truly remarkable. We're going to have greater things tomorrow and day after that. A heartfelt thank you to all our speakers and sponsors for making this day a huge success. It's been an honor to have you join us, and we hope today has sparked new ideas, learning, and connections that you will carry forward. We look forward to welcoming you back tomorrow, same time, same place, with even more exciting sessions ahead. Until then, I'm Shruti Tripathi signing off. Have a wonderful evening and see you tomorrow.